Welcome to Chronic Curiosity. Real conversations with real people. Here we go. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
But just to, I don't know if you've ever done a podcast?
No.
No?
No. As I told you, this is my first time being famous.
Oh, first time being famous. I don't know if I believe that. As long as this thing's right in this area.
Happened there,
Pretty
brother.
A little scratch?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's probably something sitting on there. I need to do a like a little re-sand, or just a little
Buffy
not like
buff?
yeah, just more of like a buff.
Mm.
So I got some scratches and stuff. This table's what? Almost 5 years old, 4.5 years old now, or no, probably 3.5.
Yeah,
4
probably.
years old, something like that. It's held up though.
It's from 1989. How dare
That's
you?
not true. I saw the
That was a
Amish
good
dude-
year.
Well, I guess the tree might be. I'm sure the tree's much older than that. But I saw the Amish dude grab it right off the floor only so many few years ago.
That's a pretty good selection they had there. Oh, you ever been to Mohawk?
No.
They have an entire, isn't it Mohawk?
Is it Mohawk?
I think so. They have an entire warehouse
Mohawk
dedicated
lumber
to
or whatever?
just slabs.
So you can make live edge and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this was one piece. And
You
we
cut
in
it this
half.
way?
I cut it in half. Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
And then no, I mean this was like the edge.
Yeah, you put the epoxy
Yeah,
in
but it
and-
was, what this table is a little
Yeah.
bit for. So it was like a 10-foot, 8-foot piece.
Yeah.
Of
Hired a family of beavers and just whittled away.
yeah, just chewed on it until
Oh, that's a good.
Yeah, they have-
good there.
yeah, they have giant, just huge chunks of wood in there that you can. There's all different types of.
I've wanted to. I've seen some. These tables sell for a lot too.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I mean, but really for what it is, if you have the setup, it's not just like anything else. If you have like the right setup
Yeah.
and you're efficient at it, you can make some money on them.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely some work. And the hard part is if you fuck up the epoxy.
Right. Start over from square one. then.
Yeah, I don't know how you do that necessarily on some of these designs the way they do them. You could probably like recut them, but
So when you're pouring this, it can go over though. So you got to sand it down afterwards, right? Polish it and
Yeah.
everything.
yeah, the whole idea is to basically you have to build a frame around it. So you put especially with doing like with the epoxy and like live edges,
Yeah.
you build a square frame around it, and then you basically get it close to being finished wood, and then you pour that epoxy in all of the cavities, and then you get it right to where it's sometimes.
So did you cut this way?
No.
Oh.
No, this was live. It was one piece. So it was a double live edge, basically. And then, so we cut it in half, stacked them side by side, and then you have to clean it up so
Right.
the epoxy sticks. But no, we had to pour epoxy in 2 different layers because it's like it's not 3 inches, probably 2 inches thick or so.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you were doing some guy math there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so it's probably like an inch and a half. Really? But you have to, you don't want to fill in too much epoxy too, because like the center will get like too gummy. It won't set up properly.
Right.
So we did it in 2 different layers, did like a half and then remixed it. And
it
It,
looks
it came out awesome,
Yeah.
especially for first time ever
yeah,
doing it.
first time forever. Tyler did a lot of the prep work, and then we, not this Tyler.
No.
Different Tyler.
You can take credit for
You
it.
can if you want to.
Yeah, it was me. By the way, I was meaning to talk to you about the other Tyler. Yeah. There's only room for one, so
That's what I thought.
somebody's got to go.
Thunderdome?
Yeah, it's got to happen.
I actually have another Tyler, so it's going to be 3 Tylers in the Thunderdome.
I work out of 9 guys, 3 of us are Tylers.
That's rough.
That's
Do you
terrible.
like call each other like last names and stuff? Or
We
just-
have to at this point,
Yeah.
or just worthless. We can
Worthless.
we can pick up
You
a
know
couple
you're
of the
talking-
guys out of that.
You've
you
never
know?
just fought for the Alpha Tyler to have that name?
I think it's coming.
I
Right,
figured.
it's unavoidable
I'll
at
announce
some
it.
point. Celebrity death match.
Of the Tylers. I don't know. How did you two meet? Because I know how I know you.
Yeah, we
But I don't-
met. We met initially at Zephyrs, and then I met Corey at Zephyrs,
Oh, okay.
and then through that I started meeting him more, and then I came over here, like I said, and we used to drink here on weekends, and Tony would show up, and yeah,
Okay. It was organic. It was an organic combination.
It wasn't as cool as the first time I met you, but
Oh.
we just kept running into each other. It was fate, I think, at this point.
Yeah, I feel like Tony does that with a lot of people too. there's not as many people around this world as we like to think there are.
No.
I think it's probably all a weird simulation. That's why you run into the same people.
Yeah.
Yeah. The first time I met Tony was pretty indicative of how our relationship would go. I feel like I was at Corey's house, and I think I was going to help him with Rogue that day when it was still pretty new. And Tony rolls up, he gets out in cowboy boots and a cowboy hat. I think was it Country Fest or something, or no, it was some concert they had been at the night before, and obviously had not retired from said activities, and just gets out of the truck and he's like, "Excuse me," and walks like 10 feet away, just pukes all over the place. I'm like, oh, okay.
I like this guy.
Yeah. It's like
Came back and met you.
we did. Yeah, it was a good time. And I said, okay, I get what's going on here.
Yeah, I would say we did a couple jobs together too.
Yeah, like super early on when Corey would kind of pull the whole crew together.
Yeah. Yep. And then he put us down for overtime at Asplin, you know. No, I'm just kidding.
That sounds illegal. I don't know nothing about that.
No, but yeah, I remember we did a lot of work around Kent, I think Stowe area, and yeah, it was just more and more from that point. So
yeah, when it was still it was very ragtag.
Yeah.
That was when I was a big boy. That was a lot of work.
Oh man, that was pretty funny to see. I remember you were like 255, 260, and you packed a lunch everywhere. And
you had to.
Well, I remember doing a job in Medina with you, and dude, you were just huffing and puffing, and your blood pressure had to be higher than giraffes.
Was he think it was that bad?
Bro, you were like
you used to sweat a lot.
I was doing a lot of work. I still do sweat. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was. I was doing a lot of work. Yeah, I was dragging all that brush. You kidding me?
Oh. Yeah, you were pretty large.
Yeah, it was too big. It was too big.
I think it's funny. So back in the day, I used to ask Fred, how do I get bigger? Like, what am I doing wrong? I'm eating like 3,000 plus calories a day, and he's like, you got to eat 5. And I'm like, how am I supposed to do that?
Yeah,
you know. And so then we started like, you know, talking normal conversation. I think it's funny. So it's coming around now. You told me back in the day, because I was one of the people that bought into your body can only absorb 28 to 32 grams of protein at a time per meal. And he's like, so I'm a lot bigger than you. You think my body's only absorbing that much? And I'm like, you're kind of right, I guess. Like, if you think about it. And now the studies are showing like your body can absorb up to like 100 plus grams per sitting.
Because you're doing what, like you say 320 a day?
320 grams of protein a day is what I'm at right now. 200 carbs, 100 grams of fat.
Are you trying to put on side?
That's my maintenance. You're maintaining right now. Yeah. So the goal is I'm kind of experimenting with semaglutide and to see if I can microdose that enough to still have the fat burning capabilities and still maintain a diet and eat the way that I am. So then I'm not losing any muscle per se from that point.
Right. Well, to me, it was always just some kind of equation, right? Like your body needs fuel.
Right.
So it has to have input. It's got to have output to look good.
Right.
Or you just feed it fuel full of fuel and you just become fat because your body stores it. So it's that balance of all the building blocks, all the calories, all the nutrients, all the protein, and then the work to put into it to build.
Yeah.
And it always made sense to me. It's like, well, if they say, when was that study? I didn't look into the study much, but I did hear that come out where they're talking about.
It's recent.
I think it felt like just last few months or so we saw it come out. Seems pretty determined now that your body can handle quite a bit.
Yeah, they don't know how much it is, but they're saying that they've seen upwards of 100 grams of protein per meal.
It makes sense to me. It was like you said. It always made sense to me. It's like, well, if you have a 50-pound child, well, yeah, their body's it doesn't need as much to survive, regardless of what it is. Just general. Then you have a 6'5", 300-pound grown man. Well, more than likely, understanding how biology works and how energy transfer works within the body, they probably need more fuel. It's like saying a semi truck and a 90 Honda Civic are going to take the same amount of fuel to move. Well, no, it doesn't. Doesn't fucking make sense.
Because the more mass that you carry, you're burning more calories, so
Right.
your intake has to be larger from that point. And that just, I don't know why when I seen that study, it reminded me of all those years ago, like at Zephyrs, we were talking about it, and I'm like,
Yeah, this
Yeah, I
might
mean,
be
he
this
was
might be
right.
bro science,
Yeah.
but it just logically, I mean, it's kind of the whole.
bro science works though.
Well, I think it's just a pejorative, that people like to throw on something because, well, you're not a scientist, you're not a doctor, you didn't go to school for 8 years. Well, yeah, but I kind of been lifting weights for 2 decades, and it seems like the more protein I eat, the stronger I get.
It's
So
it's weird,
we can make
right?
some deductions here that anecdotally, maybe, but at some point,
Yeah,
things that make sense just kind of make sense.
they do.
It's kind of like the like health food stuff and like eating fast food or this, that, whatever it might be. Um, is all of this like plant-based or seed oils or the plastics or the processed food, is that's what's really killing us? I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist, but
Tony, chime in.
I can probably safely assume that
Yeah.
if I eat something directly out of the earth, like a cow or a vegetable like just pulled out of the ground, I would think that would be healthier for me than eating something full of chemicals that I can't read.
Well, dude, here's another litmus. Like, eat the one and eat the other one. How do you feel after
Oh,
you eat
God.
one
Right.
versus the other?
Yeah. And I used to do that back in the day. We were talking about like it was a bag of donuts and a half a gallon of chocolate milk every morning. Just
Sam
because-
Sulek.
Yeah, just because I had to to like have the calories. It's like,
Right.
where else am I going to get this? I'm still eating quote unquote healthy otherwise. But even then, like I cut out like candy bars and
Mhm.
most fast food because, to your point, I'd go eat like Wendy's. Oh God, for 3 hours.
Disgusted.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
hated myself.
Right.
And it hated me. It was like there's probably something that's not very healthy going on here because I feel like a turd.
You want to introduce Tyler?
Yeah, sure.
We kind of started out.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
we're started.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going.
yeah.
Oh.
We usually just kind of just
Yeah, and then whatever point you want to, like, oh, we'll start here.
I just
Okay,
kind of
thank
talking. Yeah, so Tyler Crumbley, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
As we've established,
Yeah.
a long friend, all around for various reasons. And I forgot when we were on our way, you were like, "Oh, is it still the same place?" And it's like, "Yeah, you were probably here with were you here with Greg and
Mhm.
Seaver and them, or was that?"
Yeah, I was here with Seaver,
Okay, that's what I thought.
Greg, back when Charlie used to get those dynamite sticks.
Charlie, I forgot about him. Did he ever get?
I was just messaging him.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So
He's doing good.
that's good.
He's a plumber now, a union plumber at that. So,
He was a cat.
dude,
He's a strange cat, but I like him.
yeah, I like him. He's at first, he comes off a little bit different, but he's a good guy.
Yeah.
Really good guy.
Yeah, really good guy.
And he's a really good worker too.
Yeah,
So,
as long as he can stay out of trouble.
yeah,
But that's hey,
that's everybody here.
yeah. Wow, I don't get into trouble. What are you talking about? I just
Tyler and me are just silent.
fine
Yeah.
out like my one buddy used to say. You just don't get caught.
Yeah,
I mean, if we're gonna start lying on the
If we're gonna
podcast, like,
start-
oh,
that's
yeah,
how we're doing
yeah,
it now.
we can
Yeah.
can go ahead and move
Let's make it
forward.
tell stories.
Yeah.
That's fine. I can either confirm this is all for entertainment value.
Yes,
None of the opinions that we hold are mine.
nothing to be taken seriously.
Never. Never should be taken seriously to me.
I feel like Tyler should talk a little bit about your lumberjack.
Lumberjack into excavating into the gas and oil world.
Yeah,
What? Ooh, that's a lot, man.
it is.
I mean, it was just constantly seeking a better opportunity, I guess,
Mhm.
and just building a network of people along the way, and that's kind of where it's taken me. It went from Asplin days to a mild excavating that we were just discussing earlier, and then I got a job to start working down towards West Virginia and everything, and started traveling with companies doing various jobs, pipelining and things like that. And then I was actually working in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan when I found a job in the lower part of Michigan. They were like, "Well, do you like having weekends off? I'm like, oh man, I've never
Yeah.
had that.
fuck.
Like,
No, I
what is-
hate
sounds
having my
terrible.
weekends
Yeah.
off.
Do you like having paid vacation? I'm like, what's that?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And so I took it, and then with the idea that I would transfer back to Ohio after, a period of time, my probationary period, which was a year, there was no opening, so I found this job, and that's where I'm at now. I've been here about 2 years.
You obviously enjoy the outdoor aspect of that, or
Yes.
at least the freedom of that. I've realized I've worked a mostly outdoor job for a long time, and I've recently been mostly staring at screens. Oh god damn, does that just suck your soul away?
Being an outdoorsy guy like yourself, that's something I could never imagine myself for the right price. Sure.
Yeah,
But,
it
you
is
could
cool
pay
for
me
a
to
while.
do it.
Yeah, but then
you could pay me to do
you
it.
still really it's all the same bullshit.
Yeah.
So it's driven me along with this podcast since we started. It's like kind of one of those things where I guess not necessarily like a midlife crisis in a sense, but I get how that happens
Mm-hmm.
because people, you all of a sudden you're graduating high school and full of fucking piss and vinegar, and then one day you're still full of piss and vinegar, and you're like, but I'm a little more sore than I used to be, and how the fuck am I almost 40?
Right.
Like, what? Like, oh shit! Like this happens. Like, okay, now it makes
And
sense.
fast.
Yeah, it's like, all right. So what? And I told you at breakfast, I was like, I'm still trying to figure out who I want to be when I grow up.
Right.
And I'm like, fuck, I think I'm already grown up. So now what am I gonna do? Like,
Yeah.
Fuck it, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I told you I went out to, dinner with Austin and Josh the other day, and we were talking about back then, those were the actual glory days. And we didn't even know we were living in it.
Yeah.
We were outside, we were cutting trees, we were making not a lot of money, but it was fun.
And not a lot of responsibility either.
At all,
Yeah.
And it was just, we were like, dude, we took full advantage of that and didn't even know where we were at. And now everybody's married, kids, and it's like, you look back like, man, we used to be off the hook, I remember messaging you in the morning, be like, Fred, I can't come in, I'm too drunk. You're like, that's not how this works. Get to work.
That's fine. We'll keep a chainsaw out of your hands for that.
Right.
You could just drag brush all day. How about that?
Yeah, right.
That works perfect.
Yeah, like I said, I still have you in my phone as Boss Man Fred, I remember Corey, I think it was 4th of July, sending you a Snapchat of us all in the car together, and it was your whole crew, basically.
They're probably not coming in the morning.
Yeah.
Figures.
Still made it. I mean, I was there physically, but mentally, no.
You just got to keep them out of the way from doing the dangerous jobs at that point.
What's been kind of cool to see though is like, telling stories about we were all pretty wild and stuff, but it's not that we made like a full change or transition, but just seeing like, hey, you can't stay at that same pace forever, and like we all kind of have kids, and it's like making that transition into focusing on kind of health and family and things like that. And it's been very cool kind of in my circle to see like a lot of guys really start to focus on their health and get things dialed in. And I know you've done that for like a long time. You've always been, eating pretty clean, active in the gym.
Yeah.
Where did that come from, or how long have you been doing that for?
I'd say since the beginning of time. I mean, I started learning dieting when I wrestled for 11 years.
Okay.
And, there's an easy way to cut weight, and there's a hard way to cut
You're a
weight.
wrestler.
Yep.
Okay.
So I wrestled for Perry and Northwest for a long time. So Perry I went to Northwest, but up until high school, you can wrestle for another school. So I wrestled for Perry. And yeah, I mean, dude, talking about cutting 20 pounds in a few days,
That doesn't sound healthy.
No.
That's why
it's terrible.
I don't understand the wrestlers. That's one thing I wish I had more experience in, like, just because it's kind of terrifying coming up against somebody that like for instance, we talked to Mike Manchek on the podcast who runs a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym.
Yeah. And he's really good, isn't he? Like he's gone to nationals or something like that.
He's legit. And he's like this, I mean, short, skinny, I don't know, maybe $150 soaking wet, something like that.
Pretty just kind of unassuming.
Yeah, and like he's just the nicest, like
could just wreck you.
Yeah, just the cutest little thing.
Right. I will take your life from you.
And I'm like, God, this terrible little thing could like eat me alive and not even break a sweat. Not even think about it. Like that's kind of terrifying.
Right.
But I remember seeing the wrestling guys because I was a football player. I'm like, man, those little guys are nuts
Mm-hmm.
because they were like running around in trash bags and
Oh,
fucking
yeah.
not eating and then going out there and competing. I'm like, that seems like a whole different world that I know nothing about.
Yeah, I mean, we use trash bags because back then sweatsuits were illegal in Ohio. You couldn't buy them unless you went to another state. So when I cut 20 pounds in 3 days, I was wrestling a freestyle tournament, and I cut all this weight all the way down. It was only 17 pounds, but then afterwards, after I dropped the weight, my dad goes, "Okay, well, go ahead and get in the pool, cool off." My coach was there, and when I went and jumped in the pool, and I'm literally mid jump, my coach goes, "No!" Starts screaming. I'm like, "Is there a fucking shark in here? Like, is there a chlorine filled shark?" And I put on 3 pounds because I was absorbed it immediately. And he's like, "Go run." And so I had to do it again to then learn. I didn't know what freestyle wrestling was. So I went into this tournament and I ended up placing third because I lost to a kid that had his leg pinned between my two legs behind my back. And I'm looking at my coach. I'm like, "What do I do?" He's like, "I don't know." And yeah, he just had one leg in between my legs. I was on my back and one leg across my chest. And I could not go anywhere. And that was really off putting.
What's freestyle versus?
It's just more free
There's
form.
just less rules.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, there's your American, there's your Greco, which is more or less your slams and things like that, and then there's freestyle Greco-Roman wrestling.
I gotcha.
So it's a whole different ball game over there.
Yeah, it's neat. That's one thing I really appreciate about that and like the jiu-jitsu and things like that, where I realized like momentum and just the control that somebody has over their body.
Yeah.
And knowing what happens. And we were talking about Chappie, Mike Chaprillo,
Yep.
our buddy. Just this tiny little squirrely, goofy ass motherfucker.
Yeah.
He's probably like
Strong.
$130 soaking wet.
Yeah.
But when I was, really heavy lifting, I was 230 easy. And he would just crawl around me like a fucking spider monkey, and I couldn't control him.
No.
I'm like, God, they like it's like
he's
and
fast, he's strong.
I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, now I get it. And he's like you said, too dumb to get knocked out. Like,
Yeah.
it's like,
No, you can't hurt him.
Yeah.
No.
And he's hilarious. He'd make you laugh while he's choking you out.
Yeah.
So that's the
Absolutely.
worst.
That's a good way to sum him up, dude. He's gonna make you laugh about it. You're gonna be happy you're getting choked out by him.
Wait, when you lost all that weight, were you at like a maintenance weight or had you gained weight?
No, so normally throughout the year I would wrestle heavier. So normally like I would go 142 all year. And then come times for states, I would drop down to 128 for states. So I would try to stay in between that. But then obviously there's certain occasions, like one time we were wrestling, what was it? Like Malvern. And I think we didn't have a 148 and they didn't have a 132. So they're like, well, let's
Try to
put
meet in the
Tyler
middle.
against this 148 guy. And my coach is like, can you beat him? And I'm like, yeah, what's 12 pounds of muscle,
Yeah.
Dude, I look across from me and I'm thinking like, okay, I'm going to get in this kid's head, get up, hype myself up and all this. Kid takes off his zip up. He's got a fucking tattoo on his arm. Like we're in high school. And I'm like,
This
what?
motherfucker's 30.
Mustache,
What
puts
is
a cigarette out.
this? So I go out and I mean, I ended up beating him though. And like, because he went out trying to headhunt. And, my coach, Dave Riggs, which was Perry, and now he owns Riggs Elite Wrestling, told me, he's like, dude, he goes, it's 90% technique, 10% strength in this game. You need your strength here and in your legs. And then outside of that, if you can make your moves fluid and, they all go together, you can win. So I wore this kid out the first round, went out, pinned him the second round.
That's awesome.
And then the coach was like, who the fuck are you? And I'm like, yeah. So, no, it was fun, dude. I liked that aspect of it because I didn't rely on my team.
Right.
It was me. If I went out and lost, it was because of me. I didn't do something or I messed up. Not because my kicker couldn't make a field goal.
Yeah, that's
rough. That's a different kind of disappointment.
Yeah, well, that's like sports are funny like that too because you figure like baseball, like an incredible team sport. Like one person theoretically can win the game.
Yeah.
But they can also lose the game for you.
Right.
So it's like, man, it's putting a lot
Yeah.
on. Like I like the individual aspect after, because I played football in high school, but then like afterwards it was like, man, like all it takes for somebody just to fuck their shit up
One time.
and then just screws us all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this isn't fun. Like, and I'm supposed to like not be pissed off at that guy.
Right.
Because you're making it difficult over here.
Right. But I think that's probably where I started, was that, and
Yeah.
like trying to get an understanding of it. And then, you know, once again, I'm a big person of me versus me.
Mhm.
So I enjoy going to the gym and pushing myself to that point to where, you know, how bad can I really do this? How bad do you want it? Do you want to lift heavy? Do you want to put the weight on? Do you want to put the size on? Everybody thinks that the gym is the hard part, and it's not. Dieting all around
yeah.
is the hardest thing that you'll do.
Yeah, and
From-
consistency.
Yeah. I mean, you know, from tracking your calories, whether you're putting on weight or losing weight, it sucks. And I don't know if anybody has ever, you know, had to force feed themselves to put on pounds. I'd rather be hungry. I would rather be hungry than force feed
It
myself
does. It
food.
sucks.
It does.
But if you got a goal in mind,
Yeah.
you got to get the calories. I mean, I know I've been through the same where I used to be 5,000 to 6,000 calories for just for maintenance.
Yeah.
And that was right around there. You're like, how the hell do you do that? It's like, you just do.
Right.
Like, if this is what you want, you got to go get it.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to be a marathon runner, you got to run some miles.
Yeah, get out there and
You gotta
run.
get out there and run some miles.
Right.
It is neat to be able to see like what the body can do, and
Oh, it's
it's
fascinating.
like your own little science experiment.
Yeah.
You know.
Trying new things, you know. I mean, everybody's body's different too.
Mhm.
Like, you know, you think like, oh, Arnold looked good. Well, and then there's always people, oh, if I do steroids, I could look. No, you couldn't. You could
Yeah.
not look like these people.
No.
There's no way. They are less than 1% of the population. You do not.
Yeah, and genetics plays a huge factor.
Huge
into it.
factor. Let alone the sheer will,
Yeah.
drive to get to that point. Well, now you got your genetics in play. You know what I mean? Like, and you have to be perfect all the way around. And people think that it's not easy.
No, it's really hard. And I think it's another point too that you make there, where a lot of people will compare themselves to somebody else all the
Yeah.
time. Like, and that's an inherent flaw that we have.
Mhm.
And it's fine to like look up to somebody, like, I want to look like that, or I want to
Right.
be like that. I want to make that much money like that person does. But all right, well then
Yeah, you want to be a motivator, not the thief of joy. So,
yeah, and you also have to realize, you have to be honest with your self appraisal,
Right.
And realize like, all right, well, you know, we had this conversation with our kid, like, you know, sometimes you're just not built for something,
Right.
Like, guess what? I'm never going to be an NBA player.
Right. Me neither.
Yeah, what? Like, one, I'm just not good enough.
Yeah.
I'm not fast enough, and you know, being 6 foot tall and white doesn't really help me either.
Yeah.
But even if I was taller, I'm still not good enough.
No.
So like, you have these people that have the genetics,
Mhm.
but then they also have the drive. And not only that, some of them, they either have the intelligence or they find somebody that has the intelligence to work out all the other things too.
Right.
You know, because if you can't count, it's gonna be hard to count calories.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just saying. But like you think about like Mike Tyson's a good example. all the
That's
time.
exactly what I was thinking of.
Like Mike Tyson wouldn't have became Mike Tyson by himself.
No.
He might have become some street brawler or something like that. Like who was
Another
it?
Kimbo Slice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yep.
Like he might have been a Kimbo, but he would flash in the pan just like Kimbo did,
Right.
without that person that turned him, helped to, you know, fine tune him
Right.
into all those things that he is now.
Yeah.
And you have to be your own. To your point, everyone's different, so you have to be.
Yeah,
Your
like
own.
you said, it's good to aspire to something, right?
Mhm.
But I'm never gonna look like Chris Bumstead. Like the muscle inserts, everything, that the striations, everything's completely different on my body versus his. So, you know, appreciate what you got and work to be the best version of you. And once you get comfortable with that, it's fun. It's exciting. You see a new vein pop up. You're not a vascular person. You're like, oh man, I like that. Like, let's keep
So
working that.
veiny.
Yeah, right.
Bro, you said Sheen. I'm like, oh shit, is it Christina Bumstead now?
Yeah.
dude.
Transitioned
It's hard
already?
to say.
Yeah, I mean, once he quit, dude. I mean, he retired, Mr. Olympia. So who knows if he's making a transition at this point?
He does rock a sweet stash.
He does, dude. He does.
That's another tough sport too. Like bodybuilding, like what they put their bodies through,
Well,
like
that's
also not healthy.
No.
But hey, if that's what you want, like I'm not going to stop you.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, but any less healthy than like smoking or?
well, no, yeah, well, maybe it depends on which
No, I
aspect.
know. I'm just
Yeah,
not
they might
teasing.
they
I'm
might just not be able to walk
Yeah,
when they
yeah.
get older
Right.
because they've crushed their, like same
Poor-
like powerlifters.
Poor Ronnie.
Well, look at Ronnie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ronnie Coleman. I mean, he's destroyed his body.
Right. Leg pressing 2,300 pounds. All of a sudden can't walk. I mean, that's
Ain't
that's
nothing but a
terrible
pain
to
in
see.
the
Yeah, this seems to fit the equation here.
Right.
Yeah, and it's. I think that's also to your point you made earlier about getting older and like recognizes these things. At some point it's like, all right, I wanted to be big,
Mhm.
I wanted to be strong, I wanted to do this, I wanted to do that, and then you hit a certain point where I guess for some people don't. They just continue to push it until you're Ronnie Coleman and you're basically in a wheelchair.
Right.
Then you lose it all what you had anyways.
Yeah.
Because all these physical things are fleeting in a sense. Like you're always going to lose it. For me, it was like, all right, I hit that 255 and I'm dragging brush and I'm like,
We know.
this is tough. And then like I'm trying to
Come
take
on,
a
Fred,
yeah.
speed it up.
I'm trying I can't I could carry 10 times as much brush as you can.
Uh-huh.
I'm just going to do it 10 times slower. But like I'm knocking shit over in the shower. I can't take a shower without knocking something over. And like I bend down to tie my shoes and like
You're out of
Out of
breath.
breath.
yeah, and it's like it's not almost like it wasn't even necessarily like I was always out of breath, but it's like you're always like pushing
You
on
still
stuff.
feel good.
Yeah,
No.
and like it's like what am I doing?
Yeah.
What am I doing this for? And I'm like, well, I did a little bit of powerlifting, but I never like did enough powerlifting to
I
like
have a video of you powerlifting. You were getting ready for a bench press. I think you were doing 405.
well, yeah, but it was like
And you did that for reps.
yeah, but it was one of those things where I could tell I was never going to be the best.
Right.
Like I never wanted to be like people are like, oh, you're going to do like a bodybuilding show. I'm like, hell no. Like
Right.
I know what it took for me to eat to get to this point.
Yeah.
And like those bodybuilders that go through their diet and
Insane.
I have a mad amount of respect for them.
Yeah.
Same thing like fighters cutting weight, all these things where it's like, I won't.
Right.
Because I'm an 80%er all the
Yeah.
way across the board. I'm an
Absolutely.
80%er and
That's what
That-
I had to realize. Like, dude,
that
it's
last
gonna come
20%.
summertime, and I'm gonna start drinking again. I'm gonna have a couple beers after work, or my kids and me. We're gonna go out for ice cream,
Yeah.
and you can't have that if that's what you
Yeah.
realistically want to do. Because I'm not saying like, oh well, yeah, I'll have this ice cream as my cheat. No, I'm gonna have a cheat meal on top of my ice cream.
You might as well
And then-
because you're just doing it. So you
Right.
might as well at that point.
Yeah.
All I heard was you're not doing enough tren.
You're not doing it.
You know, the funny part about
Yeah.
that is,
Well, well, that's kind of what's getting to the point. At some point, it's like, all right, like I'm getting older. Like I'm not going to be able to be
Yeah.
huge, jacked, and shredded and constantly.
well, speak
Unless,
for yourself, okay? Because I'm
Yeah.
still trying.
yeah, I get
You
it.
know?
But like, you can still like, what's the goal?
Maintenance at this point.
Look good naked
Yeah.
and not break a hip if I fall. Really, that's kind of what I'm down to.
I want to be able to pick my kids up to monkey bars, and then also the other goal is
and be able to beat their boyfriends up when
That's
they get
it,
older.
you know? well, one day I have 3 boys.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
hopefully not their boyfriends.
Or
but-
girlfriends. Either way.
Well,
way.
dude, one of them's, just
That's
I'm
Or
just
beat
saying
their-
there's chances. There's odds somewhere, right?
Yeah,
I don't
the odds
know
seem
it,
to be
but
increasing. Too.
Right.
I don't know why. It
the
seems
more and
funny.
more, as time progresses. But no, I mean, they're going to tell one of their friends that my dad's stronger than your dad one day.
Yeah, and I want to.
And that's what I want to be. Yeah. and that's just where it's at. Like, I don't think at this point, like you said, being young, trying to lift is heavily, there's no need for me to be in the gym anymore for 3 hours a day.
Yeah, it takes a toll on your body.
It does. I get a really good feeling and I feel great throughout the entire day for a little bit over an hour a day. I'd say right around that is pretty feasible,
Yeah.
And I feel good and I still make the gains that I want to make. And if there's something that I'm lacking, then I can adjust from there
Right.
what I want it to be. But
Kyrie got off the bus yesterday, so she's in 7th grade. She's 13. And Fred was out working on my car with his shirt off. And she got off the bus and she said, "Dad, I think you're on the DILF list." And the voice that sits behind her goes, "Is that your dad?" And Kyrie goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "Wow." Something about your muscles or something.
I don't know if he said anything about my
You gotta
muscles.
feel good about that.
Yeah, I was like, well,
Yeah.
he's either got really good taste or he's scared.
Yeah.
I'm okay with either.
He told me I was pretty once, so I think he has good taste.
Yeah, well, that's part of it too, especially when it's it's this weird like dichotomy of people. I think these days that are not even that; it's even more so. There's people finding fitness and exercise and health from all different walks of life, right? You know, you had the people like yourself that were wrestlers and you know, really doing things unhealthily to their body
Yeah.
to be able to compete, you know, cutting weight like that.
Right.
You have people like that took my path that were I was eating, you know, a bag of donuts and a half a gallon of chocolate milk every morning for breakfast just as a snack, like while we're getting to the job site, just so I could put calories in me. Yeah, I was doing chicken breast and all these other things too. But and then you have people that just ate like total garbage and treated their body like shit their entire lives. And now they're in their 30s, 40s, or whatever it might be. And we're also getting some better clarity of, for lack of a better term, the propaganda, the food propaganda and health propaganda that's been placed on us by the establishment, right? You know, these places that, you know, we call, a lot of people want to talk about our healthcare system these days. Well, it's never really been a healthcare system.
No.
It's been a medicine care system.
Right.
So like
pill for every ill.
Yeah, and so it's you realize like most doctors, they're not health doctors.
No.
They're medical doctors. They're medicine doctors. Those two words are very different things.
Right.
So you have all these people from different walks of life realizing at this point we're kind of having this collective awakening. I think a lot of it too at the internet, social media. I'm sure there's a lot of bullshit out there, but you can also realize that you have access to all this information, and people are hopefully starting to register that they have to do their own critical thinking at some points in these ventures too, because like you said, everybody's different. So what's going to work for me isn't necessarily going to work for you.
Right.
Isn't necessarily going to work for the guy that's been overweight his entire life versus someone like me who has been lucky enough with my genetics that I've had a pretty good metabolism. So my struggle was always putting weight on.
Right.
And getting stronger, getting bigger. And so genetics in that place too, where like you have to, like everyone's kind of, I think slowly coming to this collective reasoning of, hey, we're all a little different. We all have different goals, but there's threads of what's the best way to get there.
Yeah.
You know, what's really healthy mean? What's a good diet really mean? You know,
dude, I literally always try and keep it as simple as possible with patients. And I'm like, eat a little cleaner, move a little more, like start there. And then, you know, there's no, like you guys were saying, there's no one recipe for everyone. Like every body's different, genetically you're different. Like, but I can guarantee if you reduce your sugars or simple carbohydrates, if you cut out as much processed food as you possibly can, I'm not saying you can never eat it, because I think there's something to be said about what you were saying. Like, I'm not going to tell my kids no if they want to go grab ice cream, or like, you know, if you guys want to smoke a cigar or drink a bourbon, like there's some level of camaraderie. There's going to be laughter there. Like it's a stress reliever. There's some, you know, health benefit, I would think, that's added to that. But you cut out sugar, simple carbs, you cut out processed food, like you're going to feel better. Your body's going to transform.
Absolutely. That's what I tell people. Start with the sugars.
Yep.
Get that out of your system, man. And just, you don't crash diet.
Yeah.
Because you're going to hate it. It's not fun for anybody.
It has to be a lifestyle sustainable.
So make a smooth transition, you know, from meal prepping one meal a day, that's your lunch. And then from that point forward, you know, try to clean it up a little bit, but go ahead and enjoy. And then now it's going to turn into, well, 2 meals, or, you know what I mean? No, I'm not going to go to McDonald's for lunch today, because when I eat McDonald's, because I've been eating this way, now my stomach hurts. You know, and that's where you start to realize, oh shit, I've been fucking up for a long time, you know, just eating this food, and you don't notice it. I don't drink pop anymore.
Oh yeah.
Dude, how huge is that when people cut out, like, they're like, I lost 10 pounds. And I'm like,
and
no shit.
Yeah. Those baby steps in, I think part of the thing where I'd give people the same advice is when they're looking to make a change. Losing weight's the easiest thing in the world.
It is.
To explain. I understand that it's not necessarily physically easy for everybody, but it's not easy for an alcoholic to quit drinking either. Right. So understanding, I think the first piece for me is always understanding the edge, like educationally, what are you doing to your body? You know, Tony's point, you want to smoke cigars, you want to have a drink here, there, you want to eat ice cream, you want to drink soda, whatever it might be. at least understand what you're doing to your body first. And then going, okay, how do I mitigate this a little bit?
Yeah.
And someone that's addicted to, sugar for one. I mean, it's a drug just like anything else.
Oh, they say it's far more addictive than cocaine.
Like it could be.
I don't know.
Like,
I've never
I don't
experimented
know.
with any
I
of
don't
them.
know anything
so.
about that.
No. Couldn't tell. I just read it somewhere.
I heard that.
I
but-
plead the fifth.
But it's, all right. Say if you wake up and you're drinking 6 sodas a day, cut it down to 4.
Right.
Let's start there.
Mild
let's
adjustment.
Let's do 4 a day, and then maybe 3, and then maybe 2, and then try to replace it with something. You still want the caffeine. All right, let's start off with coffee instead of a 2-liter of Mountain Dew in the morning.
Right.
Let's see if we can do that and take baby steps.
Mm-hmm.
Because to your point, that's one of the biggest things that really woke me up. Even though I started making decisions that were gradually seemingly more healthy when I wanted to get bigger and stronger, because I didn't want to waste any calories.
Right.
It was like, I just need protein. I need as much
Good
protein
stuff.
as I can because I need this to fuel my muscles. And, I
Yeah.
don't want to, like, that was my main goal. Like, it seemed like I was making healthier decisions, but that wasn't the idea of it, right? It
Right.
was, I'm going to stop eating candy bars and I'm going to replace them with protein bars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they don't taste quite as good. But after a year or so, it was,
Oh,
you try to go back to like drinking. Like, I used to drink, perfect example here. I used to drink energy drinks and Code Red, Mountain Dew.
mm-hmm.
I love me some Code Red.
Yeah.
But even back then, when I was like 18 or 20, whatever, that's you. Like if I drank Code Red too fast, I'd get cramps and my stomach would just destroy me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I wonder what this is. This is so weird.
Terrible.
And then it was like, oh, maybe because this Red 40 that I'm just
Right.
chugging. And that's exactly what it was.
Absolutely.
Then you go back and you start cutting those things out. And I always like to kind of equate it to like, people don't realize how fucking terrible they feel because they always feel terrible.
Right.
So if you're always
Mm-hmm.
sleeping in, not exercising, yeah, exercise sucks, but it makes you feel a lot better after, even if
Yeah.
it's a walk, whatever it might be, whatever it is,
Little sunlight.
little things.
Yeah.
You're eating fast food and all that shit. And then you switch to not eating that stuff. And then you go back and eat it. And it's like, oh God, what did I just put in my body?
Right.
Like, I feel worse than if I spent a night binge drinking.
Yeah.
Like, maybe I
Well,
should.
we just kind of had an instance where somebody, no names mentioned, they basically accepted this as, this is my new norm. This is what being an adult is. And it's somebody
Oh,
that we
yeah.
all know. And it turns out he's like, well, should I, get tested for sleep apnea? And I said, no, like there's an underlying issue to this, and that's what needs addressed. Otherwise, you're just going to mask it. And, Tony and me were talking about it, and, he had type 2 diabetes.
That he just didn't know he had.
He didn't know he had.
Yeah, Tyler
Right.
pushed him to get labs. He was like, and I don't know how I know he had some symptoms, but you were like,
Oh, I mean, sleep. He
Yeah.
could fall asleep just sitting.
and you were like, dude,
He
that's,
fell asleep driving.
You're like, that's not normal. You're like,
Right.
go get some labs. And then
Yeah.
we pulled him, and I'm like, dude, he's like diabetic, not just like
Right.
diabetic light. It's like,
Pretty heavy.
yeah,
And you know what I mean? And now now granted, it's only been probably a month now.
Yeah.
But he's already saying that, well, yeah, I'm feeling better. I'm feeling better. And it's like, yeah, man, like, and just keep making the simple adjustments. Like,
Yeah.
okay, you can't have sugar anymore. This is a problem.
Yeah.
So, and now that's it. And now, oh, well, he's getting up and going to the gym, 2, 3, 4 days a week.
and that going back to the incremental changes with the food, that's something you encourage, and I mean, we
Yeah.
encourage as well with getting in the gym, like you were saying, like,
Yeah.
You don't want someone to go in there and do a Murph or run a marathon
No,
or anything.
you're just gonna kill
It's like,
themselves for no reason.
You went in there, you did some stretches, like you did
Mhm.
something real light, like cool, but just
Well,
stop it there.
It was a guy, I forget his name, is one of Hollywood's like most famous trainers, and he said when people are beginning, he won't even accept a new client. Your first 30 days are go get a gym membership, show up to the gym.
Yeah,
He goes, I don't
attendance.
care if you work out, go in, swipe your card, and walk out if you have to. But 30 days of that,
Yep.
that's what you need to do 30 days in a row, because then now you're starting to form your habit.
Mhm.
And things are starting to make sense, and not you're realizing, and that's a lot of people's problem is, oh, I'm going to go to the gym and everybody's going to stare at me. No, they're not. No, they're not. Are there assholes out there? Yeah, but you're gonna find them everywhere you go.
Right.
You know, you're gonna go to the movies and someone's gonna say something.
I mean, they might stare at you when you accidentally walk in the influencer's video, but
Right.
Oh,
I
well,
mean,
fuck these
when-
motherfuckers.
yeah.
Just-
yeah.
Well, I make the joke all the time. It's now, even after decades of going to the gym, it's, hey, you know what? Sometimes attendance is the only thing that matters.
That's it.
I showed up.
Yep.
I came. And find my biggest thing coming off of everything that I used to do was because I used to go into the gym 2.5 hours
Right.
a day. I mean, it was probably 4 days a week because I was real busy with work and everything else, but I go in for 2.5 hours and just fucking kill it for 2.5 hours. And now it's, all right, just show up.
Yep.
Get up one morning, you're like, oh, I don't want to go to the gym. Like, just go find one thing that you can do when you get there. It's kind of like the scanning the card thing, right? Go and scan your card. All right, well, now find one thing you can do. Like, find a warm up.
Yep.
That you can go, and even if it's all you do is walk on the treadmill for 15 minutes.
It's something.
Yeah, go in and do that, because more often than not, you're there and you're like, well,
I might as well.
I might as well do something
Yeah.
else while I'm here. And even if you don't, you're like, man, I don't feel great today. But you know what? I got my 15 minutes of walking. I got my 15 minutes. The stairs are my favorite thing.
Yeah.
Because it sucks. And I just
Real
get it out of the
bad.
way
Yeah.
right off first. So it's like 15 minutes of stairs, period. And it's like, all right, I can do some more. Or I'll go at home.
Yeah.
But I got a sweat and I woke up and I did it.
You accomplish what 99% of people aren't going to do.
It's baby
And
steps.
that's the fun part.
So how are you? You talked about, I know you guys talked about the Vanguard stuff.
Yeah.
We talked about it a little bit this morning. I don't know if we've ever talked about Vanguard
I think we have.
in detail here, but
Maybe not detail.
I didn't even mention it. And we've talked about hormones and all different types of stuff consistently through on all different types of stuff. But how did like you get involved in what? Because now it seems like you're like,
I'm into it, man.
You're a little into it.
Yeah. So I've dabbled for a period of time, and I've never been shy about it. I'm not a person. I feel like, I'm pro hormone. That's what it is. And, whatever anybody wants to do, that's up to them, and it's just the Mycoherns that bother me when, I'm completely natural, dude. If you just work out for 500 years straight, you can look like
you have
me.
perfect genetics.
Yeah. And so that's the people that bother me. But I think the kids thing is what dialed me back a bit to where now it's okay. Well, longevity is the goal. It's not like we were talking. It's not I need to be 220 lean at 5'9".
Yeah, it's a struggle.
It's not that anymore. It's how can I be the most functional, fitness related, because those kids run and I want to run with them, and that's kind of the goal now. And he had my lab results, I don't know, I didn't always feel like myself, and now, being on something, I feel a lot more like me, and I think probably the years of fine tuning things myself that, like I got to a point, I'm like, oh, this is fucking sweet,
Right.
and now and then I hit a low point, and I was just like, you know what? Yeah, I don't want to be up here, down here anymore. I need a consistent basis, and that's where I'm at.
Yeah, because we've talked about that actually fairly in depth before. We had a gentleman, Hiles, on the show a couple times, who was a big power lifter, very big recreational steroid user.
Yeah.
And I've mentioned it before that I've dabbled.
Mm-hmm.
And in that pursuit of whatever it is, in my mind, and of people wanting to be bigger, faster, stronger, and it's I think our age group as well has kind of landed that perfect weirdness where it's a lot of these things used to be looked at as extremely illegal,
Right.
Exogenous hormones, all these different things, and we've kind of lived through this time of them being abused at a fairly high level.
Yeah.
That kind of there's a lot of people that are to slap labels, on them. Like you hear steroids, a lot of people think, oh my god, like they're doing hard drugs, like they're
They're
whatever.
addicted.
Yeah, it's like it might as well in a lot of people's minds, it might as well, it's just about as heroin or whatever. Oh, you're injecting drugs, like okay, like I think the collective understanding and reasoning is starting to shift to realize that, all right, not only are these not necessarily terrible things, there are some things out there you probably shouldn't do that can really mess with you.
You got any names for research purposes?
I'm just saying there's a lot. There's speaking of like bro science, there's a lot of bro science guys out there that are pumping the antivars and the trenbolones and like all of the winnies and all these different things. They're like, oh, I'm just trying to get to that peak level of imaginary human fitness,
right?
That they see. Particularly, I can only imagine now being a younger kid, late teens into your 20s, and seeing these influencers.
Oh, they're starting young too.
They're starting so young, we because I never had that, like being able, like, because to me when I was doing it, it was I just want to be big, strong, and sexy.
That's it. Yeah.
But then you see these dudes. Same thing with girls in social media. I can only imagine teenage boys are susceptible to it as well. Seeing these people that just they're on all types of drugs. They're all they do are working out because that's their jobs. So they have a leg up on you on that. But also they have these cameras and shit that they can do that it's just unrealistic across.
Editing is out of this world for that. For things like that.
And now there's AI where we're not even able to tell the difference between our own asses and elbows.
Right.
So like I can only imagine that. So how difficult that scene is, but it feels like there's a lot of people that are beginning to talk about this from a health aspect as well.
Yeah.
And because I think a part of that is when you take something like exogenous hormones and you label it like a drug, like they have done in the past, it taints the entire picture of what these things really can do for people. Particularly considering all the phthalates. See where I'm going with this? Speaking of taints, see, full circle. All these things, in case you didn't know, phthalates shrink your taint. But all these things coming full circle to it's, you trying to look at the whole picture from all aspects. It's kind of like, looking.
Man, you're really hitting the puns today.
It's on point.
But. Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is, I don't fucking know. But where I'm getting at is the point. I think it seems like conversations like these and being able to look at it from all aspects, going from, like I mentioned, the Hyle Spillman shows that we did, that he was on all of these things. And now he's like, you know what? I'm kind of disassociating from all of it. I want to figure out how I can get back to a natural, healthy, aspect. And he's going so far as to tan in the butthole and stuff. That was kind of a joke from his show, but like grounding and he tried like the whole eating like liver, like doing all of the things in a natural aspect to see what can he do to see how much he can gain back naturally. But at the same time, you look at women's health. This is something that doesn't get talked about very often, which is probably even Tony's talked about even more complex than men's hormone health.
Absolutely.
But anybody that's done any type of like testosterone explicitly testosterone replacement therapy as you get older, like it's just natural that hey, we're gonna start to fall apart as humans. We I like the thought of like no humans really die from old age. You just die from all the collective abuse that you've put on your body, and eventually it just starts to wear out,
whether it be your mind, your heart,
whatever, all the pieces and parts eventually they get worn out. And I don't see why replacing something that we create naturally in our own body should be automatically looked at as a negative thing. Like I think it should be something that is people are educated on, because it can cause different problems depending on how it's applied. Anything you do in excess, can be bad for you. But I think there's plenty of room for these types of conversations as grown adults, whether it be hormone replacement, drinking, smoking, going to war, all these things everything's fine. Like coffee, caffeine, sugars. We allow all these other things in our lives, but who is
Testosterone's the line.
Yeah,
Not
that
allowed to have it.
and weed and mushrooms.
Yes.
All shit that also grows out of the earth. Like, okay, like I get meth. Baking bleach and shit together and shit that makes
Red
your face.
phosphorus.
Yeah, like
whatever.
Or what was that alligator or something or other? That drug that they
crocodile.
crocodile. Yeah, like
Yeah.
shit like that. Like all these like
that was eating people's skin alive.
these industrial chemicals that we're mixing together. Like, all right, maybe we shouldn't huff paint.
Right.
That's probably really.
I still
bad
struggle
for
with
you.
that.
I still
to
struggle.
this day.
Yeah.
That's a hard one to give up. The yellow's my favorite.
Yeah.
But
The yellow. Oh, okay. It's a brighter high.
yeah, it is.
all that to say, let's look at these things in a comprehensive manner and be, critically.
Well, I guess that's a good
constructive with
question.
it.
Like, what is your normal then? If we're talking about testosterone, because women have testosterone, men have testosterone, we all have estrogen that kind of balance each other out. But going back to our great grandparents' age, where it was 2,000 nanoliters per nanogram was theirs, and now our new normal is 200 to 600.
Yeah, and our environment, back to the phthalates, all the plastics that we're surrounded with that we know are actively reducing, our hormone production. They're, for whatever reason, there's a correlation there with the taint size. Who is it? Is it Swan? Is that her name?
Yeah, I don't even remember her name.
I can't remember what her name is now. That wrote that book. I want to say her last name was Swan, Dr. Swan.
Possibly.
Sharon.
Is that on the hub? Can I look that up, like taint sizes?
Anal genital distance. So it was like a predictor of like male versus female.
Really?
Yeah, and the wider distance I think was the male. They said.
Yeah,
and over time they're like, oh man, these anogenital distances have started to decrease, and all of a sudden like sperm count decreased, and fertility went down, and testosterone levels went down, and young women started to have their first period at a much earlier age, and the phthalates and the BPAs and the pesticides and basically like all these endocrine disruptors, these, I think they call them xenobiotics, that it's tough to control a lot of that stuff in our diet. And I've said this multiple times, but we've got young guys that come in the clinic that are 18, 19, 20 years old. And, I always tell people, hey, focus on your activity levels, focus on your diet. If you're in Ohio, you probably need some vitamin D, sunlight, stress, sleep, like focus on these things. And they're healthy, they're super fit, they're eating clean, they're in the gym, and they're like, I have no energy. And we pull their labs, and all of a sudden you got these 18-year-olds that have a testosterone level of like 200.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what's going on here? Like, this is crazy. Like, from an evolutionary standpoint, I don't think that we've had enough time to like decrease testosterone levels that much, maybe to some degree. Because I've said before, we're not running around in a loincloth and a spear. I mean, maybe not all of us.
Yes,
Don't
this
tell me
guy.
about my
weekends.
Yeah. Don't tell me what I can't do.
But something's got to be going on there that's causing like
It
this
has.
dramatic shift in guys that look like they're, if they came in and they were morbidly obese and eating a bunch of sugar and pounding pop and stuff like that, I could see that. But they're not. They're not at all. Like, they're in the gym.
They're doing the right things.
They're doing all the things I would advise them to do.
Yeah.
It's an indicator.
It's Dr. Shanna Swan.
Shanna Swan. Okay.
Tony, what percentage of males come in and you pull their labs and their testosterone are within normal limits? I know that the normal limits, those are set by parameters that likely aren't correct, but
Yeah, I don't
would you
even
say are normal and wouldn't need replacement testosterone?
So it's trying to think how to answer this question. So there could be like, they could be within a normal reference range, but still be like pretty highly symptomatic. And, I would ask him some other things, do you have some underlying sleep apnea? What's your activity level look like? What's your diet look like? We'll look at the thyroid. Are there any thyroid issues? Do you have any, metabolic dysfunction? And so someone that has a normal reference of testosterone, but's highly symptomatic, that's kind of ruled some of these other things out, you might end up treating them, and you don't really know till you know. But there's definitely other guys too that come in, and it's like they don't have that many symptoms. Their labs are like, they're not in the basement, but maybe on the first floor. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know that you need testosterone. Like I said, we don't really know till we know. But I had a guy the other day, and he was like, I just started getting in the gym, I just started focusing on my diet. Total testosterone was in the 400s. I think the free was around like 9 or 10. And yeah, we didn't prescribe. I said, why don't you really focus on diet, really focus on exercise, um, up your vitamin D, and come back in, 4 or 5 months and we'll see how you feel. And then we'll pull some labs. And the other thing too is I always tell patients that I treat patients, I don't treat labs. And so I'm going to listen to how you feel. You could come in with the greatest labs in the world, but if it doesn't equate to you feeling good, like those labs probably don't mean anything.
So, question with that. So you went into a little bit of detail about your testosterone level versus your free testosterone level.
Mhm.
So could somebody in fact have a higher testosterone level, but their consumption of the free test with your absorption rate be lower?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you're not going to be diagnosed with something. You can have a higher testosterone rating, but your absorption rate be lesser
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
normal, and you would need to,
So it's funny because a lot of guys will come in and they'll be like, I have some outside labs, and they might not get everything that we would order. But their primary care pulled like a total testosterone, and we look at it and they're like, oh, he said it's fine. It's 500 or 600. I'm like, okay, well that's half the story. Like that's what's available in your body. That's not actually what's making it to the receptor sites that receive and use testosterone. Usually that's about maybe 1 to 2%
Mhm.
of total testosterone becomes free. So there's a protein. It's called the sex hormone binding globulin. So it's a binding globulin protein that transports sex hormones such as total testosterone. It binds onto it, takes it over the receptor. Like I said, about 1 to 2%. So sometimes if people have a higher level of sex hormone binding globulin, uh, it'll bind to more of that, and you won't get 1 or 2%. And so you could have a testosterone total level that your primary care pulled and said you're fine, but you're like, I don't feel fine. I'm symptomatic. I have low energy. I have a terrible libido. I have brain fog. I'm in the gym, but I don't see any muscle gain. And all of a sudden, that sex hormone binding globulin level is binding more to that total testosterone, and you're not getting it. It's like, I always say it's like the Uber of testosterone. Well, it missed its delivery and it just kept driving with you in it.
Right.
And so, you've got a 500 or 600 total, but you've got a free that's, maybe it's 5, maybe it's 6. And so then, we would talk about, like I said, kind of lifestyle. What's that look like? And then if we need to use the testosterone as a tool to correct and optimize those levels, we would. So,
I always come back to I guess I look through it from a grand scale, like almost like evolutionarily. As humans, we didn't always have grocery stores. We didn't have medicine doctors,
Right.
that not these pharmaceutical doctors, and all these other. We didn't have computer screens. We didn't live our lives inside for the most part. So for me, it's kind of I take a reductionist view of it. Of what can you do that's more natural,
Right.
just in general. Like to me, that's always a good starting block. Like,
Mhm.
what can I do that's more natural? Well, like we talked about, is processed sugar natural? Not really. And we know it's probably not great for us because it doesn't fuel us super well. So, okay, let's take a step away from that. But is getting up and moving natural? Like that's what
I think that's what people struggle with the most. Like
yeah.
the old saying that a body at rest stays at rest goes a very long way, but a body in motion does in fact stay in motion. It might hurt a little bit more the older you get, but you're going to stay moving.
Yeah, but it's going to hurt less the more you move.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I
pull that closer.
yeah, I'd counter that with the moment you stop moving is the moment you start dying.
Yeah.
I've said it a ton of times. I have a neighbor, Steve. He's mid-70s, loves golfing, and he was a truck driver, so he didn't do a lot of physical activity, but he likes golfing. And I ended up at one point going out golfing with him, and I realized he has a cart for his clubs, but otherwise he's walking 18 holes. I'm like,
good for him.
Well, I can't get a cart. I gotta carry. I can carry my bag, okay. But then I'm like, by hole 16, I'm like, God damn it, Steve! I was like, you're kicking my ass. He does this multiple times a week, and I'm like, yeah, he's not out there doing anything crazy, but he's always out doing something. And it's like, okay, and he's still kicking. And you notice those people that just don't stop.
Yeah.
are the people that seemingly continue to not stop and not hurt themselves as you get like just staying active alone. Just doing something that, all animals do.
Uh-huh.
You got to move.
Well, I mean, there was a study that, I came from the laborers union, and they said that, getting out of the laborers union, the amount of that you put your body through in that time frame of your 20, 30 years, whatever it may, your lifespan after retirement is about 10 years, because a lot of the guys, they get used to that. Oh, well, I can actually rest now.
Yeah.
And you think that, like everybody, it's a myth. Like, oh, well, I didn't sleep much this week. I'm going to catch up on sleep this weekend. You can't, in fact, do that.
Right.
That's not a real thing. But it makes you feel better, But these guys, they're getting out and they're stopping doing what they know how to do, what you're supposed to do. And they don't live that long. I think that's...
You talked about like that body in motion. I think along with that, you have to have like a mind and a spirit that's in motion as well.
Yeah.
Like my grandpa, he's 93. We have breakfast with him sometimes, and he challenges his mind still at 93. And he's still out, doing some level of physical fitness. And then I think that, I think there's something to be said about some level of, we've talked about meditation, or, if people want to pray or just something like that internally, where like, you're calming the spirit and you're, just kind of calming the mind and, focused on positive energy.
Absolutely.
You're engaging, right? You're doing a little workout, whatever it might be that you let anything sit, it's going to atrophy, right? Entropy is going to tear that thing apart and want it to be at the lowest level of energy expenditure possible. So you sit long enough, you don't do anything, then you're going to turn into dust.
Right.
And I think that also, like Tony, you bringing that up, there's this level of consciousness that I don't think people, we, particularly in the Western societies, historically, we've all too easily just kind of cast that aside, and not necessarily being like woo woo about it, but like, you think about stuff, right? Like people have thoughts all the time. That's a thing we do, I think.
They may be useless, but you have thoughts.
Yeah, but but if they might be useless if you don't explore them.
Right.
So, maybe there's a level of to our being that's not just physical as well. Like, you have to exercise your mind.
You have to.
Because if you don't, then guess what? You're going to lose that shit too.
Mm-hmm.
So there's these levels of grandeur that we tend to ignore, that there's so much more out there that
people just see. They're so close-minded these days. Like, it's one of my goals to learn something new every day. Whether I retain the information is neither here nor there, but I'm going to try. I'm going to strive to learn something different, something new, whether it be just scrolling on Facebook, coming across, a clip of something that somebody's giving some sort of information to. It's a goal. Like, Tony and you said, you have to work out your mind as well, or you're going to lose that. And that's, where people, dementia and things like that, like, I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but, maybe they just at one point were like, yeah, this is it, and just stopped. I'm sure there's, of course,
there's all the things that add up. All back to the plastics. I've seen that study recently where they said like the average human has like a tablespoon full of plastic in their brain. Like, Jesus. Yeah. Well, you look at like water.
Probably in their face at this point too.
Well, that's a lot more than a tablespoon. Yeah. Tons of cc's of that shit.
Right.
But even like it's scientifically proven now, whatever the fuck that means these days. Like plastic water bottles. Like, first of all, I always kind of thought it weird when we were like back in the day, like they started selling plastic water bottles. I'm like, why the fuck are we selling water? Like, people can get that.
Yeah.
But like what was it, like a water, just a regular plastic water bottle has like millions upon millions of plastic.
Yeah.
It's like plastic molecules and shit in it. It's like, well, we're constantly just poisoning ourselves because we've allowed corporations to, because they make profit off of it. But like, all those things add up and they take a toll on us. It's like, and then I guess it's the disregarding of some of these issues by the people that we're supposedly supposed to trust is mind blowing to me, especially when they come back and they're like, oh, trust the science
Yeah.
and like all these conspiracy theorists and like you don't like you're not an expert, blah blah blah, whatever. It's like, well, the experts have been fucking lying to us this whole time. So who am I supposed to trust now? Well, you can't trust yourself, that's for sure.
Right.
Like, the fuck you mean?
Right.
Like, I'm the only.
I absolutely can.
I am the person that knows the most about me.
Yeah.
By far.
Well, if you haven't seen the movie Dark Waters, that's one to look into for
I don't know if I have
trusting
seen
your
that one.
local government.
Oh, Jesus.
That was, I forget the company, but yeah, they accidentally released so much Teflon
Oh, Jesus.
into people's waters back in the day down in West Virginia. And yeah, and they tried to cover it up until this mom, her son moved to California to become a lawyer. And then her neighbor, this guy that he grew up with, all his cattle were dying from, whatever. And he's like, nothing has changed. They're drinking the water, that plant down there. And yeah, and it was, back when Teflon was on your plates and you were microwaving it and you were eating it. And yeah, and now they have, there's an actual guy that lived through it. He was one of the kids and he's all deformed. He was, people were having miscarriages and babies were coming out deformed and they were losing them. But one of the guys ended up making it. And yeah, he's the spokesperson for it. It's a crazy thing.
There's so many stories like that too,
Yeah.
that just repeat themselves over and over and over again.
And they tried to buy people out and
Naturally.
they just to cover it up. And it's like, oh, maybe you should not poison people. Like that would be a good start. Like that's pretty cool. I mean, you look back even to Hitler's days when he would increase the amount of fluoride into the people's.
That's one of my favorite ones that's been finally coming in full circle recently.
I love it.
Is like people like
conspiracies.
Yeah, but the sad thing is most conspiracies, a lot of conspiracies are not. They're not theories. They're actually true things that happen.
Right.
It's like, because I remember hearing about that for years. Oh, fluoride, this, that, whatever.
Good for your teeth, though.
People are like, these are conspiracy theorists. And then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, so fluoride does make you dumb.
Yeah.
Oops.
Makes you calm.
Yeah. Yeah. But also we don't put that much in the water. Yeah, so it's fine.
You're going to be fine.
What?
Yeah.
Like, is this the same thing you told me about asbestos and lead too? Like, why is fluoride just fine then? Because it keeps your teeth nice? Mm-hmm. Fucking brush your teeth, motherfuckers. Right. Like,
that's it. It's not.
I'd like to keep my extra IQ as much as I can because I'm in a real bad spot. I've talked about this. I'm in a real bad spot where I'm just smart enough to know when I'm not smart, and I hear people talk that just blow my mind. I'm like, I have no idea what the fuck they're saying right now. And
they're fun to listen to.
Because every once in a while I'll catch something, then I'm like, ooh, I fucking understood that.
I know that word.
Got that. Yeah. I got that. That made sense. That's wow. But it'd be tough. Like, there's a lot of people out there that don't realize that they're just not working with a full deck.
Right.
And how much of that was imposed upon them because of their environment.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like back in the 50s and 60s or earlier when everyone was fucking smoking.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Marlboros, those are the healthy ones for you.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. And then, you're drinking a bunch of alcohol while having a baby. Like, oh, that doesn't turn out very good either. Like, all these different things. It's like, fuck, like we continue to screw ourselves over, really in the name of, I hate to sound like a fucking commie here, but capitalistic profits. It's like, that's a tough one to swallow because capitalism is, I think, about as good of a system as it gets. But it
when utilized correctly.
It also shows the dangers of the evil in humanity.
Yeah.
And greed. So it's like, how do you balance that? I don't know. I'm not smart enough to figure that out. I'm not smart enough to figure that out.
Scale.
It's above my IQ level. Yeah. I had too much fluoride.
Yeah, but I've had a few doses of fluoride in my day.
So, plus some.
So where do you we keep going back to the alcohol, the cigars, but we're all fitness, we're this and that, and it's like, where do you personally draw the line, I guess, with that.
I think it's all personally, right? Like you nailed it right there personally. I think to me, it's a calculated risk scenario.
Yeah.
To me, it's no different than owning a motorcycle, or really driving a car.
Every day.
Every day, you know,
drink every day. Cool.
Yeah,
I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, it's all calculated risk, right?
Right.
It's you have to have the knowledge and understanding, and the education, which is why I kind of joked about, having a low IQ, but that's at some point, like you have to have the ability to understand the situation you're getting into. It goes along with, young kids and adults and the decisions that those two groups are allowed to make, right? Getting a tattoo at 5, probably not something that we would entrust to a 5-year-old.
But a sex change at 5.
Oh, well.
Completely okay.
Know.
You're an adult to make a decision at that point.
When you know, even though you don't know.
Yeah.
But to me, that's really what it boils down to is the best case scenario is we can educate people on the dangers of what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
But what it boils down to me, it's all personal choice and personal liberties. I would be more of a proponent for individual personal liberties with less restrictions, and more focused on, instead of preventing people from doing dumb things, educating them why it's a dumb thing, and then letting them make their own decision.
Like the Tide Pods. And people
Like the Tide Pods.
Kept eating them.
Yeah. And I mean,
like humanity sort itself out sometimes.
At some point, I'm a little bit of a Darwinist. And there's an aspect to natural selection that this has got to a real world turn. But I think there's an aspect to natural selection that shouldn't be ignored.
Yeah, I agree.
For the overall good of humanity.
Yeah.
Now that's not to say, we talked a lot of shit about the health / really the medical industry. There's a lot of awesome things that come out of the medical industry.
Yeah.
But when we take
testosterone.
Yeah, like testosterone, insulin. That's a really fucking awesome one.
That's a cool one.
Yeah, but it boils down to, like, we tend to focus too much on all these ancillary negative things, like whether or not people can grow their own weed and smoke it, versus,
has to be store bought.
Here's a fucking industrial supply of OxyContin.
Right.
That's okay. Probably going to ruin your life.
Yeah. Just make sure after you can't afford the OxyContin anymore, you switch to heroin, like, immediately.
Right. Yeah. But we'll give you this.
But marijuana, dude.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to have
I don't
that.
remember what was that one drug we talked about before where, like, they ended up winning a lawsuit that dude ended up becoming like a compulsive gambler, and there were people that became like compulsively addicted to like having men bang them that never showed like.
That sounds familiar. I think I have that symptom.
But there was like one who was like, this dude was basically straight his entire life.
Yeah,
but he was like all
the gambling part. I meant the gambling part. Yeah, that's what I meant.
But there was some
banging well.
Yeah, there was some drug out there that they actually won a lawsuit that was basically like, it completely rewired my brain and destroyed my life. Wow. And they actually won the lawsuit. It was some wild shit. But like we have this surface. My biggest problem is we have this such surface level view of everything as humanity and as a larger group, where there's not enough of digging down past these surface level things and these symptoms and getting to the root cause. It's let's let people do what they want to do, but educate them.
Right.
And just like these dudes out there fucking doing backflips on dirt bikes and shit. Hey, you can break some bones, right? Yeah, but I got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
As long as you're not doing fucking backflips into a crowd of people.
Yeah.
Now
it's different.
Yeah. And can you record it so I can watch?
Well, yeah.
Because
I've said the same thing about addiction. Like it's not a problem until it's not your problem, right? Once your problem becomes everybody else's problem, now we need to pay more attention to it and what's going on with it, And like you said, doing a backflip into a crowd of people, Yeah, that's probably not acceptable.
Yeah.
Doing a backflip on your own? Hey, man. Yeah, have
Yeah,
at
if-
it, dude.
if you
That's
want
pretty
to.
cool.
It doesn't sound safe.
Yeah.
I could think of a couple crowds of people I'd mind seeing a backflip.
But and that's very easy to say, right?
Yeah.
Particularly when it comes to like addiction, because you look at these people that have gone to somebody that they thought they trusted,
Mhm.
a doctor, and this doctor gives them this prescription
Yeah.
that is going to make their body entirely different and reliant on this drug. And there's plenty of data enough now to show that. And it's like,
Dude, that data has been around for like hundreds of years with opium as well.
Well.
Like, we knew it.
yeah, you can go. We'll take a little toss. No, I mean, I don't think we need that. Injuries. Once I like pushing it too hard,
Yeah.
lifting too much, too heavy, too strong. Oh, okay.
I think that's
Fine.
I think that's why when I say I'm too old, I just don't want to hurt myself.
It's not worth it.
It's
it
not
takes you out of
worth
condition
it.
for
Like
so
it's
long.
fun as shit. Like I
Yeah.
love it. But man,
Yeah,
like,
I got
at what point when you're hitting a PR like that? At what point, like, is it worth to get it? 10 more pounds? Like you're not putting on a whole lot more than that.
Right.
yeah.
At least I'm not. And I don't know. It's just not worth it to potentially risk an injury.
No, and that's. I got to the point where I just realized that. All right, I got big.
Yeah.
I got strong-ish, and I got cut-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Like I looked decent. But I was never like I just kind of balanced them all out, and it was like, man, if I keep trying to get stronger and stronger, I'm just gonna end up hurting something because I already had like little injuries here and there that nagged along the way. You may toss that. Or you?
Yeah.
I did it multiple times where I went to deadlift and I'd pop a rib out. I dislocated
Really?
rib. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's
No,
normal.
that's-
Did you ever get that checked out?
What's that?
I said, I don't think that's normal.
Well, it was just something happened. I can't remember the one time I did it while I was lifting, I think. And it was what I
Like dislocated it or
it just it popped out and then I had to get it like I don't know how it was. Okay. Here we go. So I think partially it was I wasn't doing as much core work as I typically did because I got to the point where like I started getting that kind of like that bodybuilder type core.
Yep.
Because I
barrel
was
belly?
I was developing my muscles and I was getting them. My abs were getting fucking huge. I was like, all right, I got to stop doing this, because I don't want my abs to continue to get like they grow.
Yeah.
People don't think they really grow. Like you would think like other muscles do, but they do. So I stopped doing as much core workout, and then with the pressure of deadlifting and everything, I can't remember if I think I did it as I was lifting the one time, and it was one of my bottom ribs that kind of float. So like there you have like 2 or 3 ribs in the bottom that kind of they're connected in your spine, but they wrap around. They kind of float. They're not connected to your sternum like the rest of them.
Right.
And so I twisted the right pressure to where I moved and it kind of popped them out.
How'd that feel?
It not terrible at the time,
Really?
but it's one of those things where when you move like something out of placement, it's the muscles around it. Once they get sore, and also like I don't know if you've ever like bruised any ribs or like broken or anything like that, or
It's not fun.
no, because you have to breathe, right, and your diaphragm
Every time
moves.
you do.
Yeah, and it's like fuck. I went to the doctor. They eventually kind of got it put in, because I was pretty big then. It was hard to manipulate me, and then I went home. I got out of the shower, and as I was like moving to dry off, I could feel it just go click, and it was like fuck. And then it took a while. I went back and they tried to get it back in. And I think they kind of did. But then at one point I weeks and months later, maybe I had a belt on, went to deadlift and just bent down and breathed in to get ready. And I could just feel it go click. I was like, fuck. So I went to the doctor right away. I like just took my stuff off. I said, all right, I'm going.
You know the deal.
Yeah, I know the deal. They were able to put it back into place. And then like I just was real relaxed for a while.
Yeah.
And was fine, but it just hurts.
Yeah.
And then I realized that those imbalances of what you're doing, because I was deadlifting well over 600 pounds at that point for reps, and it was like, all right, is this something I really want to do? Like my
Yeah.
shoulders hurt, like my elbows would hurt every once in a while. And it was like, man, like I'm not getting any younger. Like
Mhm.
I can feel the abuse of throwing around hundreds and hundreds of pounds is doing on my body. It's like, what am I doing this for? Like, I don't want to get any bigger. Like I'm actually reducing my size. So inherently I'm not going to get any stronger. And I
Is
guess
it just
like,
a mental barrier then of like Toby Keith said, you know, as good as I once was, you know? Are
Yeah,
you
well, it was a
trying
real-
to compete with your former
yeah,
younger.
well, it's that, and like I can really empathize with young women
Mhm.
and like bodybuilders and those people that they look in the mirror and they don't recognize themselves.
Yeah.
And it's like when I can't imagine how difficult it is, particularly for bodybuilding women, not like the real big bodybuilder women, but like the women that do like the swimsuit,
The
bikini,
figure,
the figure, stuff
yeah.
like that, where like you look at yourself in the mirror and it's like you can see every muscle and like
Mhm.
you're shredded, and you're like, fuck yeah.
But you used to do the same thing. We've all done it.
Right,
You know,
it's-
critique the body dysmorphia.
Yeah,
is
that's what I'm saying. The body
insane.
dysmorphia, it's like, okay, now I get it.
Right.
Like I understand because now like I can, in my younger 30s, I'd look in the mirror and like I start putting on weight, this, that, whatever. I'm like, man, like, and I'd see pictures
Mhm.
of what I used to be. And it was like, man, I'm fat, I'm out of shape. But
Mhm.
meanwhile, like you can still see half of my abs, which is 4 more abs than you see out of 98% of the entire world. And I'm like, you realize like that body dysmorphia like comes into play. So it's like you just have to do this whole, at least for me, I had to do this whole like recalculating and recalibrating of my brain, who I am, what do I want to be physically, mentally, all of those things. So then it just became, all right, I've been doing this for 20 years. Let's just get in the gym. Let's stay healthy and look good naked. I think I can, those are 2 goals that I think I can live with. So then it was like, I guess I got to start doing more cardio because they say your heart's like good for you or something. So
I don't think
more-
you really need that. Tony,
Yeah.
can you weigh in on that? There's like heart replacement therapy,
Yeah.
right?
We got that down in Mexico. They got
Yeah, we could do
I'm
that.
sure we know a guy.
Does supersetting really count as cardio, right? That's like
Yeah.
that bro science. That's true,
I
right?
think if your heart rate's up enough, like, yeah, I mean, I've done
Counts.
workouts where it's like a kind of a circuit high rep, and it's like you're sweating as much as you would if you were running, and
If not worse.
Yeah,
I mean, when you're
yeah.
talking about adding weight in, I mean, dude, CrossFit's a perfect example.
Oh.
You're I mean, I had my
CrossFit, cross fuck off.
Yeah.
I've been there too. I did that once, and
Yeah.
that embarrassed me too.
Yeah, I
'Cause
mean,
that
dude,
was-
I signed up for opens and just realized that I'm not even contention, and I'm working out with Spurlock 2-3 hours a day to be the best version of ourselves. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to sign up for the CrossFit Open. There's 15,000 people in Ohio that sign up, and you're like,
I
yeah,
should-
you're like top 2,000. You're like, wait, what? This doesn't even make sense at all. And that's where the genetics come into play. Like,
got it
dude,
too.
sometimes you can do
Well,
it.
steroids as well.
Yeah.
I don't care about it. I dabbled in CrossFit at one point in time, very briefly. It was embarrassing and humbling. But I learned some things.
Yeah.
But it was funny. We'd go to like CrossFit competitions because Cass was a instructor for a while. And it was like you look at some of these higher level competitors, and I was like, oh yeah, all these people are fucking doped out of their minds.
Well, dude, they're doing 2 to 3 workouts in a day when they're training. You're like,
just for the
And just
recovery.
brutal work.
Yeah, just for the recovery alone, you'd
Yeah.
have to do steroids. But
Yeah.
it was like you looking at some of these, the male competitors for sure, but like you can really see it in the female competitors. It was
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, these people are on steroids. And then the CrossFit community around me was just appalled
Oh,
that
yeah.
I would ever even suggest that these wholesome, fittest people on the earth
They
would-
eat paleo
would-
day
yeah,
in and
would-
day out.
would ever consider performance enhancing drugs.
yeah.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the female's sword fighting you.
Yeah, I'm like, look at this Jessica over here in
Yeah.
her trap. Her traps are bigger than mine, and I weigh 230 pounds. Get this, she's doing fucking
Yeah,
50.
Clit's bigger than your
Yeah, like she's doing.
You lost so many friends at that competition.
Oh, yeah,
When you like said that, And I was like, guys, you guys are naive.
Yeah, like
You're
get
like,
she's over here doing
"No."
50 ring muscle ups.
Yeah.
Like it's
Well,
nothing.
what was that?
Fuck out of here.
What was that? One of the top athletes, and he was from another country, but he was like placing second and third, and they were testing him for steroids, and he was passing. He was passing, but it wasn't anything that they really picked up on. It was something else that like it was endurable, is what they called it, and it just increased his endurance to like an insane amount to where, yeah, dude, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna keep running these 4-minute miles, and you're never going to catch me.
Well, same thing like Lance Armstrong. Like people
Yeah.
like they look into like, well, how could he be on steroids? He was a skinny bicycler. It's like, well, they're not all the same. Just
Doesn't
because
always work that way,
Yeah,
guys.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
Well, look at the Russians. What was that? Everyone but their figure skaters, they said.
yeah. Because the figure skater, when they put on too much muscle
Yeah.
mass, it actually prohibited them from doing a judge.
Yeah. I bet it will
Yeah.
help for clubbing someone, though.
Yeah.
Little Tanya Harding action.
Yeah.
Really get behind that swing.
Yeah, it's but it's incredible what some of those people can do. Drugs or not,
Yeah.
you still have to put the work in.
Yeah.
Like
well, here's a fun fact: for all your favorite athletes that are top of the line are probably doing
100%.
something that is, body enhancing or,
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
of some form.
Yeah.
You're doing it. You think your favorite NFL player isn't juiced out of his fucking
No,
mind?
that's the joke of it all.
know,
Like NFL's
Stop
like
it.
stop. Like
Stop.
we
Yeah.
all know what's going on in the NFL.
Yeah.
Like to pretend like it's not, quit it
Mm-hmm.
because you don't. Sorry, but you're not 6'7", 350 running a 4.8 40. Like
No.
unless you're on a lot of drugs.
Yeah.
Like
It's not happening. I mean, even doing like you said, Murph. I mean, I think my best time for doing Murph was like 44 minutes. And then you got Josh Bridges that did it in 28. And it's like, how is that even remotely possible?
drugs.
It has to be.
Yeah.
And
There's-
kipping pull-ups.
Yes.
Well,
that does
Yeah, well,
help.
it's a different standard there. But yeah, it's and it's whatever at some point it's like, well, they've never failed a drug test. It's like, all right, well, that means they either timed it right or they had a set of drugs that they're not testing for. Like, because people think they hear like drug tests, and it's like this magical thing that just knows if
It
you're
has to be very specific.
yeah, like
what
you
you're
have to
looking
be
for.
yeah, and even then some of the markers that you're trying to find, even in like you look at like a pre-employment drug test.
Yeah.
Like some of these things that they're measuring can easily be false positives or
Yep.
false negatives. Like you're just to understand the science, like you're just measuring this depending on what the test is. Like
Yeah.
it can be false, it can fail, it can be so many different things.
Well,
It's
what was it back in the day? The pre-workout that was failing people, Jack
jacked.
3D.
Oh god, that's
failing
so
people.
good.
Yeah, failing people for meth.
I bet it did.
Well,
Because I love it. Just like
Yeah, every-
"Ooh."
Everyone loved that. So that was Patrick Arnold, who was a ridiculous chemist.
God, that stuff is
He
good.
was the one.
Bring it back.
Yeah, right. So I think that was 1,3-dimethylamylamine or geranium, and it was like a derivative of amphetamine, I think, or an analog of amphetamine. But he was a wizard. So he did Jack 3D. He did what was it 1AD? Do you remember that pro hormone 1AD?
I don't know if I
Oh,
do.
I'm
Remember
not
that
familiar with
one?
that one.
Mm-mm.
It was super legit, but he was also the guy that you remember the Balco scandal with Barry Bonds and
Right.
Victor Conte. He was the one that designed the clear.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he came up with like a steroid that was. Oh, they're not testing for this one, and
Let's go ahead
Yeah,
and
the
roll
two
with
knew
that.
what he was doing.
Jack
Yeah.
and Dingers.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, that shit was
Speaking of which, what's his
awesome.
name? If you're coming out with anything new recently, I'm open and willing to give it a shot. You know,
Yeah.
let me know.
Dude, he was a mad.
Yeah.
Because I remember because I used to try all the different pre-workouts, this, that, whatever. We got a hold of that Jack 3D, and it was like, what is this stuff?
Mhm.
Like I don't
Yeah.
know what it is.
It
but
was 3 ingredients, I think. So it was that 1,3-dimethylamylamine, it was chalcamine, and it was caffeine. Or
Really?
guarana, yeah. I think it was just 3 ingredients.
So what's the deal with the ephedra? Because ephedra was banned for the longest time for the same thing,
So
and then now you can take it up to a certain milligram,
Yeah.
and you can go buy it.
yeah,
But hey, just don't take over 20 milligrams.
well,
a day.
so as a singular component, I don't think it can be mixed in supplements, is what the ruling was.
Mm.
Okay.
So, but we can still get it from compound pharmacies, and they'll
Mhm.
combine it with caffeine and aspirin, which you could get it on your own as a asthmatic drug. I think it's a beta 2 agonist, I think. But yeah, you could just combine it with
Really?
yeah.
Hmm.
So it just can't be mixed, I think, is what the FDA said.
It's kind of like Four Locos.
Yeah.
Can't mix the alcohol and caffeine. Fucking pissing on my parade.
Right. Those are great times that I'll never remember.
But I honestly, I don't know which was worse, that combination or the combination with the sugar content in it. Because aren't
Yeah.
those things like
They were through
basically
the-
half sugar?
Yeah.
Like, oh.
I've yet to complete a Four Locos challenge, but I'm still gonna try year after year. 4 Four Locos in under an hour.
Oh god.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you.
Is that without pissing yourself?
Yeah. Is
Or they
that,
strap your hands
Yes,
with
With
the
or without the
afterwards?
blackout.
Yeah.
You know?
yeah. I guess I'm trying to figure out what the real feat is there. Is it the ability to withhold, like,
You're
to
a man
contain
if
the
you can do
alcohol
it,
without
yeah.
pissing yourself, or is it you're able to handle the sugar content without getting type 2 diabetes?
Right, yeah.
I think yes.
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 Yeah. Because that's fucking rough. Oh god, that makes my teeth hurt just thinking about it.
Dude, college was something else. I'll tell you.
I have seen the Edward 40 hands done a couple times, but never with
Mhm.
Four Locos. Seems like that would be a dangerous.
2 Four Locos strapped to each hand. Game on. That's
All
our
right,
next,
next
that's our
weekend.
podcast.
Next
Yeah.
week, he's like,
Coming up next.
Oh, God, I'm gonna need to take like a week vacation after that. That is one thing. As I'm getting older, I could tell. And it's not bad. Like it's a joke, right? Because you hear people like, oh, wait till you hit 35 or hey, wait till you hit 45. And
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's true.
Mhm.
But also like it probably helped if you weren't 100 pounds overweight before you got there.
Yeah.
But I can tell a difference from like, I'd say it was probably around like 33 where I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I think the recovery time, some of those things are like starting to wane a little bit.
Yeah.
And as you get older, and particularly because I think probably it hasn't necessarily helped out, but I think it's made me smarter in how I move my body is, I haven't been on any exogenous hormones for quite a while. So that also contributes, I
Yeah.
think. But it's, right now I'm kind of, in kind of like my friend Hyle's boat where it's like, all right, what can I do to prolong this natural aspect as much as I can? Because there's likely going to be a day, because I'm not any way, shape, or form against like a TRT.
Mhm.
I think testosterone replacement therapy makes sense. I think I'd love to see, and I think there's some work being done on it and some progress being made about like, women's hormone replacement therapies as well as they go, because why not, right? Like if you feel okay taking a medicine or any type of pathway to make yourself feel better for whatever other reason, then like why can't we use modern medicine to go, okay, here's something that, just replacing our natural hormone levels slightly can help us enjoy life a little more longer.
We do female hormone replacement. So, and I mean, usually
So I know we talked about that before. How's that?
yeah, it's good. It's good. I mean, the girls, the nurse practitioner and physician assistant, Steph and Olivia have been treating females. Usually we'll do like the estrogen and progesterone replacement when they're starting to go into that perimenopausal. They're starting to have the, vasomotor symptoms, the hot flashes, the night sweats. One of the early things is a decline in cognition. Like that recollection, that memory, it starts to fade. Things that females used to be able to do, cognitive wise, all of a sudden they can't, and it's like kind of a big telltale sign. Libido drops, vaginal lubrication goes down. Sex discomfort sometimes. But yeah, we've been doing that, and then even outside of that, with some younger females, we may do some testosterone replacement. So that's becoming more and more popular. The women will come in and there's like very low libido, energy's down, and then the effort that they put forth kind of in the gym and with their diet isn't commensurate with the body recomposition that maybe they used to see. So they're unable to lose weight or they're losing muscle, and they'll come in and their free testosterone will be like 0.01 or 0.02, basically non-existent, and we'll get them on 1/10 or 1/20th of what men might need.
Wait. Women and testosterone.
Women and testosterone.
Oh man, the
Here-
unheard
here we
of, dude.
go.
Yeah, women have testosterone.
They do.
Yeah,
They do indeed.
Yeah, and men have estrogen. Surprise, surprise.
Some more than others.
That's yeah.
Is it difficult to help women that are on hormonal birth control? Because that's
Oh.
fucked up,
Yeah,
fucked
yeah,
us up
yeah.
our bodies for a long time, like years and years. And then, like, would you recommend someone stopping stopping their hormonal birth control before trying to get their labs checked if they're, if they're willing to do that?
Yeah, I've definitely had women do that to like reestablish a baseline, but sometimes it's like, man, it took 6 months to get back to some level of normalcy or baseline.
I would. Yeah, I'd expect it to be at least that.
Yeah.
Especially if it's. I mean, regardless if you're doing, exogenous hormones as a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
What's the recreationally,
Mhm.
or
It's
being on a hormone.
For
that
men,
changes for
men, it's
years.
actually kind of surprising. Like I've seen guys like levels return and like FSH and LH levels from that pituitary that basically stimulates the testes come back like and these guys were on like higher doses, like 3 months, 4 months. And not all of them were on, something to kickstart that gonadotropin production, HCG or enclomiphene or kisspeptin or gonadorelin or things like that. So, I don't know, Cass, I haven't gotten too much into that either. Like I'm not a female hormone specialist. It's something that like I know enough to kind of use low levels to correct things, but I'm certainly not an expert in that. So I'd be open to learning more, or it'd be cool to get someone on the podcast that's treated as many females as I've treated males. So
But you have people at Vanguard. You mentioned Steph and somebody else that does it.
yeah, we're gonna get them on the show sometime. So Steph is a nurse practitioner. Olivia's a physician's assistant. And they kind of work with the female population that we have there at the clinic.
Does one of them work out at the gym? Is she the one that
Steph
did your
does.
labs? Okay,
Yeah.
I've seen her.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, she's pretty fit.
She
Yep.
did shows, right?
I think she did a show.
Okay.
I think so.
Okay.
We'll ask her when we get her on. So there'll be a bundle of nerves for a little while, and then they'll open up. So
Yeah.
it'll be fun.
Would you say it's harder to diagnose a female's as opposed to a male's?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if like, so you got to think like the female hormone cycle, like estrogen's up, progesterone's up. Well, estrogen up, progesterone down, progesterone up, estrogen down. That follicular luteal ovulatory phase. And so it's like, yeah, we want to get you in on a certain day, but do you have a 28-day cycle? Do you have a 30-day cycle? Will that be day 3? Will that be day 5? We're going to get you in. And then you almost have to do serial labs based on if it's a true 28-day to really go, oh, okay, like I have an idea where I think things should be. But you almost need like a couple labs to really paint a picture. Whereas a guy, it's like, okay, we can, I know if you're trying to go through insurance, they want 2 AM labs, but I can look at a guy's labs and go through symptoms and be like, hey, we can probably do something to help you, or
Yeah.
hey, you're okay.
So just looking at increased variables and
Big time.
over time frames and just in
Yeah,
general.
And is
with-
that hormonal birth control altering those labs based on when you're taking it?
Yeah, I'm
and-
sure.
and,
Yeah,
I'm
I
like,
sure.
what
can't
it
imagine
is?
it wouldn't.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Because like that's what you're taking it
Yep,
for,
yep.
and so
And probably depends on the type of birth control as well.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. And then the other variable that you add in there is if someone is kind of that perimenopausal, like their ovaries are declining in function. So it's like this level might have worked, but all of a sudden 6 months later, the ovaries decline more. So now it's producing less progesterone and less estradiol, or just less progesterone and not less estradiol. Like it's one of those things where I talk to females and I'm like, hey, you're going to have to listen to your body, and you may kind of self-adjust or make changes. Like, I can't really tell that to most guys because they would be like, let me just inject the entire vial of testosterone.
Right. It
That's
sounds
where
like
I'm trying
yeah.
to be.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I'm talking about. Just
How-
give it to me.
I feel great here. How much farther can
But,
I push
yeah.
it?
Yeah, how much greater can I feel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
But yeah, females though, like I'm like, you're pretty in tune with your body. Like let's say you've got some, hot flashes and you're on like 1 milligram of biestrogen. And the hot flashes, decrease but didn't subside completely. They might go, oh, let me increase, one more click of cream, or let me increase the patch, or the pill and do a little bit more, and all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, my symptoms are alleviated," and then they report back to us, "Hey, I increased the dose just a hair, symptoms resolved, things are good." So
But that's the part where you said, like, we're not treating numbers here. We're
exactly,
treating people.
exactly.
How
So
do you feel?
yep,
People need to start being more in tune with what's going on
yeah,
with themselves.
yep,
Don't accept this as my new norm. Like we were talking about the other guy with the type 2,
Yeah. Tweak
it
it.
sucks waking up every day. Oh man, I got narcolepsy or something. No, that's not normal to just fall
There's some
asleep.
probably underlying factors here.
Yeah.
And it sounds like, particularly with women's hormones, it's a more complex and condensed array of factors that, can continue to change and repeat or cycle themselves in a smaller time frame. Whereas, you look at like a dude in a sense, for the most part, it seems like there's like this large curve from as they hit puberty through time, and it just kind of goes up, kind of plateaus for a while, and then eventually falls off, where women have this consistent, condensed, small cycling of hormonal change that
every month, and
every month, and then as they
45 or 55, the declination, and then so
yeah,
I
sounds
think for me, dude, that's the fun part though, is dialing it down. This makes me feel good. This makes me feel bad, and then start increasing the things like we were talking about, more activity, being outside, like you said, being in Ohio, vitamin D.
yeah.
Everybody's almost deficient in that. I mean, that can bring up your mood tremendously.
Yeah. How many times you hear that, especially around this time of season in Ohio, where like the sun's starting to come out and people are like, "Oh, man, I just didn't realize how sad I was until I walked
Seasonal
out in the sun."
depression.
And it's like,
Yeah.
like this is one factor of things that like, hey, your body gets things, vitamins and all these different factors that it's not just, oh, I have to exercise and eat right. What the fuck does that mean? Or like, Cass working at the doctors all the time, sure, people like doctors telling patients, well, watch your cholesterol.
Yeah.
Watch it do fucking what? What the fuck does that even mean?
And majority of the time, those doctors, man, like you said, that they're treating with medicine. How many times have you been to a doctor and it's been some person that's 300 pounds overweight and they're looking at, oh, your blood pressure's really high. And it's like, brother, I can't
Takes
even
one to know
fucking
one,
take, I
huh?
can't
I
take you
guess.
serious. They told me I was overweight.
Yeah.
They told me I was overweight, like, because of the BMI chart.
Oh,
walking in.
Yeah, I've done that before.
How you weigh 206 pounds, sir, for your height, you're extremely obese. As I'm like veins coming out of my shoulders.
I've done.
And they're like, I'm like, really? Tell me all about how unhealthy I am.
Yeah, I did that. I was on her insurance years ago when it was like 220, 230 and just fucking shredded.
Mm-hmm.
And her insurance was like, yeah, your husband's obese. He's got to do these extra steps to, get the insurance premiums reduced. And like, well, what do we got to do? Like, they're like, well,
you said the guy came out to the house and they just
no, it was, I had to drive up to fucking like Cleveland because they're like, well, if you want to contest, our, ruling that you're obese, you have to go up and you have to get a body fat percentage test done to prove yourself.
Did you go in just like fully oiled up with a Viagra, just flexed and dick hard?
Went and got a spray tan the day before.
just to make it look good.
The mankini.
Yeah. Well, I walked in, the guy was like, all right. He's like, you're here for a body fat percentage test for insurance. I'm like, yeah. And he's like, okay. He's like, well, go ahead and, take your shirt off. And
Fred just...
He's like, we'll get started. He turns
rips
around.
Off his pants. He wore button-up pants that day.
He literally, like, he has his back to me, and he's getting stuff started, and he turns around with the calipers in his hand, and he pauses and goes, well, this is the dumbest thing I've ever done.
Sub 10%.
Yeah, like, he couldn't even, like, I think he got me at, like, 11 or something like that. Because he was like, I can't, like, there were spots where he's like, this might hurt, because I can't, like, pull your skin. And I'm like, I get it, man. Just do what you got to do. And he's like, this is so dumb. I was like, I tried to tell him.
You wanted this.
Yeah, you made me.
Right. Going back to what you were saying, that's one reason, outside of wanting to have good quality with longevity, and I want my kids to look up to me, and I want my patients to look up to me too. Like it becomes more believable when I'm talking about something if I'm truly kind of walking the walk.
Right.
Like you said, you're like, I don't want, some big fat doctor to tell me like, oh, you need to eat cleaner, you need to do this or that. And you're like, really? Have you looked in the mirror?
Right.
But going back to, some of the other stuff, I wonder, like, education wise, like how much they're actually being educated on nutrition. And cause I know I don't think we had any nutrition.
No, we were brought up with the fucking food pyramid.
Oh,
Right.
jeez, yeah. What do you mean, Fred? That thing wasn't right? You can't
Yeah,
have
10
68 servings of carbohydrates?
We eat 10 bowls of pasta a day? That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, that and the other thing, and this isn't to like defend docs or anything like that, but I personally know sometimes for not what we do at Vanguard, but some of the other stuff, I have like incredibly limited time, and a lot of people, it's like they come in and they don't want to hear like, well, that's viral, like go do supportive care. They're like, well, give me an antibiotic. Like I paid, I want something now. And how much time do you have for education? And I always do try and fit that education in there, because ultimately, like, my goal is to not, like, I don't want to prescribe anything to anyone. If we can correct it through lifestyle change is awesome. If we have to use these as tools, hopefully we can do that, even if they're on them long term. But ultimately, I want you to make the decision. Like, I'm not a fan of paternalism in any aspect, which goes back to Darwinism and some of the things we joked about. But I want to be able to, like, educate patients. I want them to show, take an interest in your container. Like, you get one, make smart decisions, ask questions, do your own research. And then ultimately, if you end up on, hey, I think that this, the benefit outweighs the risk, like, let's do it under our safe guidance.
Yeah. I think it's also important to point out that not every doctor is a doctor for the symptoms that you're looking for.
Sure.
So, how many times, once again, you go to these guys, and I've known plenty of guys. I was at a gym in Michigan with a guy that was going to his doctor, and they refused him TRT because at 125, he's within normal range. But he's like, dude, I'm so fat, I'm overweight. I'm like, brother, go to a hormone specialist. And he's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, your normal everyday doctor doesn't know nutritional value.
Yeah. They can take your blood pressure and check your temperature.
Yeah. I mean, you're not going to go to, your normal doctor to do brain surgery on me. No, you're going to go to a brain surgeon. So go to the area that, if this doctor isn't working out, okay, well then there's another avenue somewhere that I need somebody that specializes in what I'm feeling.
And hopefully you're working with a team that's like pretty collective too, so that then they're like, oh, you do want hormones. Hey, I've got someone that's very good at that. Or, you do have a neurology problem. Let me get you in front of this.
I feel like
brain
it's hard to
specialist.
come across.
It's super hard.
100%.
Super
Yeah.
hard.
Well, because
It's not. They're gonna send you to whoever
Is within their hospital. or
yes,
network
whoever,
or-
whether they
yeah.
know if they're good or not.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, we can't even I say we. I don't work there anymore. But when I was at the Cleveland
That's why
Clinic,
I'm forming the
we
medical
weren't even
Avengers.
allowed to like refer to the Worcester Hospital, even though we know that you're local and your transportation is local.
Did you just go DEI on me?
Well, that was a difficult thing that I started realizing when she was working in the medical field, and like, even so, we've talked about this before quite a bit. Cass has type 1 diabetes, and she would go to a specialist, and she was also a nurse. So we saw this healthcare industry for decades, from a lot of different aspects. She would go to her diabetic care specialist, and I went with her a couple of times where, this is the person that like she has to go to, like, as her specialist doctor for this thing. And I'm like, I know more about this than they do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what the fuck is going on here?
Right.
And then she would work, people that were her coworkers for decades, would make like these ignorant comments about having type 1 diabetes. And, oh, you can't eat sugar. You can't have this because it has sugar. And it's like, it's not how it fucking works.
Right.
Like, but these people also some of them didn't even fucking know her name right after fucking 20 years. I'm like, and these are the people that we go to that we're told consistently that, go to your primary care physician, and they're the doctors that you should trust. When they don't, when it comes to the medical industry, and well, when it comes to health, they don't know shit about fuck.
Right.
Because you can tell, like, a lot of them they're unhealthy, they're overweight, they don't take care of themselves, and all they want to do is just pump you full of fucking drugs.
Right.
So it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Like, how is this? So even when in some areas you go to specialists, like, what does that even mean? Like, and that's a terrifying thing, that even the specialists in some of these industries, you realize, like, these are people that just went to college and ended up finding themselves at this job. And that's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
And when you apply it in that sense, anybody that's had any type of career or been in the industry long enough, you realize there's a lot of people that are in the industry that on paper are experts.
Yeah.
But they're fucking idiots.
They're dumbass.
And
Yeah.
they have no idea what they're talking about
at all.
They've just passed the right test by the skin of their teeth,
Mhm.
and they've gotten the signatures on paper to say, "Yeah, I'm a doctor."
Yeah.
And
it's the same. It's the same thing that I've argued with. Well, my doctor said this. It's like, well, you can become well informed too.
Yeah.
Like the information's out there.
Yeah. A lot of people go to school for 7 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, and I hate to hear that because when I tell, well, my doctor said this. Well, this I would say, I'm not a doctor
But
by
maybe
any
your
means.
doctor's fucking wrong.
Right. Maybe look into yourself. There's not a one size fits all for anything. So it varies body to body, and that's what's fascinating to me is how different people are. But they try to make it to where it's just, well, this is going to work because it's worked in the past.
Yeah.
And we just had to watch a thing at work on a guy that was talking about rocket ships going into space, and how that ties into gas and oil is another story. But he was talking about it, and he said throughout the time it was just a progressive decrease in what was acceptable. And he said he was flight number 10. This guy went on a rocket ship for NASA, and from 1 through 3, everything was fine. But then the fourth one, it was like, they still made it. And then the fifth one, this one's acceptable. And then it was like flight 13, I think he said, it blew up. It didn't detach, and it was just the progressiveness of, people not caring anymore.
Yeah.
And I think doctors, anybody can be the
Getting away
same
with
way.
it.
Yeah.
It's progressive.
Right.
Getting away with
It's the
shitty work.
laziness. Like, go to somebody in your field that is, what you're feeling, and do your own research. You can fix a lot of things.
Well, it's one of the things I enjoy with some of my patients is that they're like, a lot of them are super well informed.
Mhm.
And so I find myself listening to like lots of podcasts, and I'll go to Reddit all the time because I know those are the things they're going to read.
Mm-hmm.
And so they'll come with these questions, and I can kind of confirm or dispel, or sometimes they challenge me, which I love because I'm like, I don't know.
It's
I'm
a
like,
hunger for knowledge.
yeah, let me dig. And I think that like everyone should be that way, but especially professionals, when things are changing so rapidly, it's like you have to constantly be learning on like a daily basis. It goes
Mhm.
back to what we were talking about with the, mentally, physically, spiritually, you have to challenge yourself. And that's like the 24-hour clone principle that we talked about.
Mm.
That like at the end of 24 hours, you're going to have to kill your clone. You're going to meet yourself from that previous 24 hours. What did you do to become a little bit better?
Yeah. There was a saying that I seen. It was like, to become the new version of you got to kill your old self.
Yeah.
That's the deal. And a lot of people are afraid to give that up. You think, that, oh, well, I got to give up drinking and everything like that on the weekends with my friends. If your friends are just calling you up every weekend to just drink, then
If that's all you do,
then I would somewhat question that. Like, I want to surround myself with people that are doing better, that push themselves to do better. Like, that in itself, the older I get, is more fun than anything else.
yeah, 'cause it allows you to get older.
Yeah.
Instead of die young.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned, doing your own research. And a lot of people hear that. It depends on how you interpret that,
Mhm.
statement. But I thought of a really good example that, that kind of ties all this together. That, I had some shoulder problems. I've always had some shoulder problems because I used to be a swimmer. And then, they just kind of transitioned into lifting.
Really?
Yeah, I used to be a competitive swimmer. No shit.
I'm sorry.
No, I'll tell you what,
Funny.
though. Once I started,
Fred 255
the
lean.
land shark.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. When
Speedo.
I got back in the water after I had gotten up to like 220, 230. Whole different game.
They used to call me Fast Freddy.
Yeah, I did not float very well. But I've always had kind of like weak shoulders. And then when I went into lifting, I kind of stayed away from it because my shoulders would hurt. And I didn't work them as much as I should have.
Yeah.
And then I got to a point where I had some shoulder injuries that my one shoulder just fucking hurt all the time. Like it was like that. I couldn't like reach in, like in the back seat of something
Mhm.
to like grab something. It hurt eventually. And I just kind of ignored it for a long time because it was like, I don't know what to do with it. And I'm not going to go to a doctor around here because I know none of them know what the fuck's going on. Cause I'd go to them to like do my ribs that I was talking about. And they were like, well, we'll see if this works.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I don't know what to do. And then finally I found somebody, through Cass that she knew like her husband was a big lifter, well known for being a power lifter and whatnot. And I'm like, and I guess she was okay. And it was like, all right, well, maybe this person will actually listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it was like, part of that doing your own research was me going and understanding how your body works, the parts to my own body, and then how it hurts, when those times are that it hurts. So you can explain to this person, hey, this is where I'm feeling this is, and being able to explain to somebody like, hey, this is what I kind of feel like is going on.
Right.
Cause it gives an actual expert some data to go off of instead of just, oh, my shoulder hurts.
Right. Every time I reach up to grab something out of the shelf, Yeah,
your shoulder's got a lot of parts and pieces in it.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like, so it's like, oh, it's this rotational, this, that, whatever. And she was able to send me, she's like, this is kind of what I think is going on, but here's 2 specialist names that I think will, they work. I think the one was like worked with like the Browns team and stuff like that. So it was
wow.
they kind of know, they're specialists in this area.
Sports science.
Yeah. So it was like, all right, I went there and the guy, like, he fucking raped me as far as my wallet goes. But he was like, he went through a couple things. He gave me a shot of cortisone and was like, well,
temporary.
Like, he goes, he's like, the only thing I can think of, it was my labrum was come up and he was like, what I think is happening is that tendon's kind of flattened. It's rolling over your bones. He's like, so what we can do is give you a shot. Should help kind of reduce inflammation for a while. He's like, but we could cut it and just attach it to your shoulder directly. I'm like, well, that sounds pretty invasive. He's like, yeah, I wouldn't suggest it at this point until it becomes to like something you can no longer bear with. I'm like, so what am I supposed to do? Like, obviously, like lift. And he's like, you're probably not going to do any more damage. Really. He's like, so use it, just don't push it. And I was like, okay, so I'll just start using it more.
Yeah. I
started using it more. Shoulders never felt better after, but it took a couple years to like, but it was one of those things where I ignored it so much that I created an even bigger problem.
Yeah.
Cause it wasn't that balanced usage. And it was like, I could have gone there and he could have been like, well, let's just keep on giving you these shots every 6 months or whatever. And, oh, all right, we probably got to do surgery. But it's like, well, that's a lot of change. How many times did that happen to people?
Right.
They're like, oh, let's cut you open. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's put you on these drugs.
And
it ends up ruining your life where it's like, really, it's like, okay, like it might just be something you have to deal with a little bit or take care of yourself in the right way.
Yeah.
You might be able to solve your own problem.
Yeah. And I think, that's a huge thing. You know what I mean? Like, give yourself a chance, right? And like you said, have somebody. You want a doctor that's going to ask you questions. I've known you for years. I've known Tony for years. And even when going through his clinic, the amount of questions that he was asking me, well, what does your activity level look like? What are you eating every day? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and I'm like, bro, like, like this is a little bit invasive kind of, but
garbage in, garbage out, motherfucker.
But you can't.
How many morning erections are you getting tired?
Yeah, that's a good question too.
Dude, morning, noon, and night these days, dude. right now. It's
24/7.
now.
Just thinking
full
about
torque,
it.
trying to hide under the table.
Man.
Just thinking about it. He's like, yeah, you talking about me?
Yeah. I'm not going to get up and use the bathroom again, So, but those are all things like, as much as you think. And that's what I've told everybody that I've recommended to him. Don't fucking lie. You can't lie. You're not doing yourself any favors.
Nope.
He's going to ask you questions. Well, like that.
Yeah.
What your morning would look like.
Yeah.
How
much
and not judge you. Like there's,
Mm-hmm.
dude, I have zero judgment. Like,
right.
I might chuckle a little bit,
Yeah.
but I'm not laughing at you.
You're right.
But it's all like
you.
diagnosing. To solve a problem, you have to understand what's going on. So,
Yeah,
like, you have to
absolutely.
understand all those things. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you drinking a liter of vodka and cola every day?
Yeah.
Whatever it might be. Like,
What's your morning mimosa look like?
yeah, like, is this like are we going like a 3-finger mimosa, or are you pouring the orange juice inside of the fifth?
Fisting mimosa.
Like.
Provide providers just don't ask questions like that anymore, though. Like,
No,
because
they just
they have
don't.
a sheet of paper.
Yeah,
and they go off of that.
I mean, I went in and was complaining of restless leg syndrome, and she wasn't. I mean, I wasn't complaining of restless leg syndrome. I was complaining that I couldn't sleep because I had severely restless legs. And she was like, "Oh, I'll give you some Requip." And that was the drug that we mentioned earlier that causes.
Then you were like, I just want to have
addictions
sex all the. No, I'm just kidding.
with whoever.
Yeah.
Maybe I turned gay. I don't know, and gamble all of our money away.
Yeah.
But they just
all because
Did
of
you
some
start
restless-
gambling? Was
That's
that
gonna
story about
It's
you
going to be
earlier?
a fun 7
Yes.
7 days.
No.
Yes.
Yeah, but we found that out later. It was like
You are what figured out like why that probably triggered. I had stopped another medication, but I was like, well, can we do some labs or whatever? Because like my quick Google searching said that like RLS often has to do with your dopamine levels, and she was like, no, I can just put you on this medication.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, can we check can we check to see? Like, she didn't ask me if I was taking magnesium. She didn't ask me if I had changed anything recently. Like, nothing.
And she also didn't allow you to know that drug had been going through court cases because people gambled their life savings in away and like getting
Yeah, risky behavior.
risky sexual behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah, like out of
Not
nowhere.
all sexual, just some
No.
just regular risky behavior.
Yeah, in risky. That's what I'm saying. Risky behavior,
Non-sexual.
mass
Yeah.
gambling, all these things. It's like, just
Yeah.
because my legs are restless at night, like now I turned into a fucking
Sports
compulsive.
better.
Yeah, I turned into a compulsive
Yeah.
gambler and ruined
Right.
my entire life because I wanted some
There's a
drugs so I could
pickleball
sleep.
tournament on at 4 a.m.
Yeah, I gotta be
I
back,
gotta
guys.
gamble on this.
ESPN the Ocho.
Right.
Well, and it's we joke about it, but that's really the thread of that story is severely entwined with the opioid epidemic.
Isn't
That's exactly what happened. You know,
Mhm.
people had some pain, or they got in a car accident, or this, that, whatever it is, and all of a sudden they're like, "Here, pop a couple of these," and next thing you know, you're out on the street trying to get your fix because you're addicted to it, and
I
you
mean, how many
ruined your
times have
fucking
you
life.
seen the infomercial that's like, this will treat symptoms of restless leg syndrome, but may
Yeah.
cause immediate death?
Yeah,
Like,
but you
know?
might also want to kill yourself.
Yeah.
Like what? Like,
Explosive diarrhea, suicidality,
Yeah, like,
committing
Jesus.
suicide while having diarrhea.
like, fuck. Like, it's terrifying.
It is. It is. That's where the point is. Find the underlying cause of what's going on with you. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like I said, I've known Tony for years, and the questions that he asked me in the beginning, even knowing me, is just, dude, you know I eat clean. Yeah, but like, what are you eating?
Yeah, how clean? Because a lot of people say, "Well, I eat pretty good.
Yeah.
I exercise. I do."
Yeah.
Or,
How many
do
times do
you?
you eat fast food a week?
or I drink a little bit. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Wow.
okay.
Like a
Well,
little bit.
what's a little bit? Or it's like, well, I'm drinking before I go to bed, which
Yeah.
is just disrupting the hell out of their sleep. And
Yeah.
so one of the other things too that like I'll talk to patients about is like going back to what you were saying with like affecting kind of dopamine levels. Everything now seems to be affecting like neurotransmitters or dopamine levels.
Mm-hmm.
The hits on Facebook or the likes or the Instagram hearts or the TikTok or, you know, on our screens all the time or just everything. And so we're kind of constantly bombarded. And oftentimes I'll tell patients like, dude, put your phone down, like go outside in nature, like go get some real sunlight, go do some hiking, like do something that, you know, kind of reestablishes some normal dopamine levels. But unfortunately, it's almost like they have to take, you know, such a period of time away from the phone or porn or whatever it is to get their dopamine levels back down to where those natural things actually elicit those feelings of kind of, oh, I feel good. Like there's a, you know, some happiness, some joy here. But I think our dopamine levels, our neurotransmitter levels in general are just trashed right now.
We've been hijacked.
If
Well, and how many medications cause it? I was on a
Yeah.
medication and then stopped it, and
Oh,
it was
yeah.
like fucked.
Down below basic,
Yeah, and
yeah.
I didn't realize that it was bothering me until I was like, I can't sleep at night. And I'm like,
Ibogaine for
this-
everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, moving forward, can we leave porn out of this? Just saying, it's a sensitive subject.
Is that a trigger?
Is that true?
Going back to boners, by the way. No, but I mean, the phone thing is a great point. I mean, dude, they say the same thing. Like, you know, telling a drug addict to hey, we'll just stop doing drugs. Well, go ahead and set your phone down for 30 days.
Yep.
Yeah.
Go
Yep.
ahead and stop that. And
Yep.
it's like, well, no, that's my lifeline. I got to pick it up. Yeah, I know.
That's the
Stop.
problem.
That's the
Stop
problem.
sugar cold turkey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, it's just
Stop. No, just kidding.
No, please don't recommend that.
It's all about moderation.
It is
Moderation.
2-3 times a day. It's okay.
That's,
Yeah. It's controlled.
There's a lot
That
of
is
hours.
moderation if you were up to 8 times a day.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
See?
true.
Now I'd be concerned.
To be
Now,
fair,
now that's
Wolf of Wall Street. You
Yeah.
know?
rookie numbers.
Yeah, you gotta
Goes
pump
up.
those up. The amount of stress you deal with every day.
oh, it's tough. The silence. Yeah, I think you talked about too. The going out and being disconnected from the phone or whatever it may be that's hijacking those dopamine. That dopamine is going outside and just sitting there for half an hour.
Mhm.
Like most people think, oh, just sit outside. When nice day, just sit out. No phone, no nothing. Just sit there for half an hour.
Yep.
Most people be like, after 10 minutes, like, well, can we?
Sweating to get
Yeah,
back
like, what
to
do
the
we
phone.
like? Let's go do something. Like,
Mhm.
no, just sit there, and you'll realize eventually that there's a benefit there. It's not as quick reacting, as all the things we're used to because we live in such that fast paced environment of, the phone, the drugs, whatever it might be. We're always looking for something. Everything's at our fingertips.
Mhm.
So it's hard to like retrain your biology to let's just slow down.
But isn't that the point that, like you said, slow it down, right?
Yeah.
That's the point. The older that I get is life goes by fast. I mean, like I said, we were just out talking about our glory days yesterday. That was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That was some of the best times I ever had around some of the best guys I've been around, and that was no, it wasn't. That was 10 years ago, and even seeing my kids, I mean, set my phone down. Okay, we're going to practice football. We're going to practice t-ball. That's what we're doing today.
Yeah.
Even for a little bit, dude, just set it down for them. Life goes by fast enough. You don't need to make it quicker.
Yeah. Especially when you're full circle in these hijacked dopamine loops.
Mhm.
It's constant. Every one thing to the next, and life clicks by so fast.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's much better you can do than taking the time to stop and slow it down.
Yeah.
Enjoy it.
Death to the thief of time.
I think that's it. Slow it down. Take time. Appreciate you guys.
Watch porn.
Thanks.
Just-
Well, unless it's a problem for you.
Yeah. Unless
Thanks.
it's a problem.
Yeah. Thanks, Tyler.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Appreciate it.